Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to live Fantasy Pros Championship draft coverage. I am your host, Eric Balkman. You follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman. You also check me out on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and of course, the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show, bringing you a live look-in, a free look, as the kids say, a 12-team draft tonight with all 12 teams gunning for a $1 million grand prize in the FFPC Fantasy Pros Championship. $350 to get into this thing, $1 million grand prize, and we are live tonight bringing it to you with my good buddy Dave Terpoli, who's going to join us momentarily here tonight on the show. You follow him on Twitter at Dave Terp. Please welcome in. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to cover this Fantasy Pros Championship live draft for the next roughly 90 minutes or so, and I will tell you that we have a few guests scheduled. I shouldn't say a few guests scheduled. We should have a few guests coming on tonight as well to talk about their team and how well they feel about this $1 million grand prize based on what they're doing tonight. It all starts right now. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's a great show tonight. $7:03 in the PM means it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for live Fantasy Pros Championship coverage here. All 12 of these teams will be gunning for a $1 million grand prize tonight. Can't do it without the good help of my buddy, the FFPC loudest voice out there. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Terp. It is Dave Terpoli. Dave, welcome in tonight. Thanks so much for joining me, man. Are you excited because you have, and I don't know if I'm doing double duty or not yet tonight. I'm going to find out in about a half hour here. But are you excited to do double duty? Fantasy Pros Championship now, Superflex basketball tournament later.
I actually got triple duty tonight. I got the Fantasy Pros draft now. I got a best ball off stream at 8:30, and then I got 10 o'clock Superflex with Dan Williamson and maybe you, maybe Aiden. So it's a busy night.
It's going to be fun. The FFPC will go live now as we are covering this Fantasy Pros Championship draft live, and we're also going to go live at 10 o'clock Eastern time with Superflex Best Ball Tournament coverage with a little help, with an assist from the GOAT District's Dan Williamson coming on board tonight at 10 o'clock to offer all of his tips and tricks for everything going on in all things Superflex Best Ball Tournament. Hey, if you have not signed up for the FFPC main event, highly suggest you do so right now, because tonight is the deadline for the second early draft slot announcement. If you register by midnight Pacific time tonight, or if you pay off your balance, excuse me, if you already paid your deposit and need to pay off your balance, do so by midnight Pacific time tonight, and you will have your draft slot early tonight on Thursday, and you'll find out where you are picking for a $1 million grand prize in the FFPC main event. These 12 drafters tonight are gunning for a $1 million grand prize in the Fantasy Pros Championship. $350 to sign up. We have drafts going all throughout the night tonight. You will not be waiting long. The slow drafts are still going on, obviously. The live drafts usually start up 1 p.m. Eastern on weekdays and 11 a.m. on week ends. So make sure you're registering for that. Pair of $1 million grand prizes can be won. We also have FFPC Dynasty Leagues going off at the $100 price point all the way up to the $5,000 price point. And we also have a pair of best ball tournaments going off, closed 12-team leagues that start off at $5. So make sure you're registering for that. Also an important deadline today. The deadline for the FFPC live events discount at Planet Hollywood expires tonight. So make sure you are going at myffpc.com. Click on main event, scroll all the way to the bottom. There's a link there that you can register, and you will get hooked up for your massive savings at the FFPC live events coming up in September at Planet Hollywood. Those expire today. In fact, those rates could double or even triple after tonight. So make sure you are registering now, or email our casino host, FFPC casino host, Greg Sidoris, at Greg at myffpc.com, Greg at myffpc.com, and he will get those booked for you as well, so you don't miss out on it. Let's get into the tonight's draft here tonight. We already have a bunch of people watching. Let's tell you who's drafting tonight, featuring a pair of six-figure former winners tonight. In the one spot tonight, we have Taylor Kofke drafting. That is Taylor Kofke drafting from the one spot tonight. You're looking at Colin Baxter in the two spot tonight. The one spot, Justin Jefferson goes to Taylor Kofke. Jamar Chase going to Colin Baxter. Ryan Cleary takes Travis Kelsey, the first tight end, off the board at the 103. G.H. Devine takes Christian McCaffrey at the 104 as the first running back off the board. And then Brent Studebaker, a former guest of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. The stud Dynasty 26er goes with Cooper Kupp at the 5 spot. The first of two $500,000 winners tonight, formerly of the Football Guys Players Championship. Donnie Andrews drafting 6 tonight. He gets Tyreek Hill. The other half is Brady David. He is drafting 7th. The two guys that won the $500K in 2021 drafting back-to-back tonight. Donnie Andrews takes Tyreek Hill. Austin Eckler at the 7th spot, the 107 for Brady David. Stephon Diggs goes off the board to Richard Patika. That's Team Tigo. And Rich Bilyeu, our unofficial mascot, live draft mascot, ends up going.
He sure is.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown at the 109. Bijan Robinson at the 110 to Derek Torres. Frank Imbornoni, another guy who's been drafting a lot live here on our streams, takes CeeDee Lamb. And Tony Pollard, Terps guy, goes to David Johansen at the 112 tonight as the 4th running back off the board. Terp, a lot to unpack in this first round here. So let's start off with not Amon-Ra St. Well, let's talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. So 109 tonight, he's been creeping up. I'll give you the mojo on him, and the mojo means fantasymojo.com, at FantasyMojo on Twitter. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes Championship. He puts together that contest every single year, and anytime we cite ADP, it's through his website, fantasymojo.com. If you're drafting in the FFPC, I recommend you get a membership there. It will help you out immensely as far as the stack finder goes, the ADP goes, and everything else he provides there. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown has creeped up a little bit. He is at the 111 over the last 2 days in the Fantasy Pros Championship. He goes at the 109 tonight. Quite frankly, point blank, how early is too early for the Sun God this year?
He should be earlier. I mean, I think 111's, the popular pick of like where he should be falling, but to me, he should be going right after Tyreek Hill, right in the 1-7 range. I mean, you could even make an argument that put him in the category of Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. I don't think it's like crazy to say that. I mean, St. Brown has everything going for him. The guy is just, he reads off everybody that got drafted above him every single day. That guy remembers every single team that passed on him, and he's going to make them pay. You saw last year, he was just probably one of the best fantasy picks there was, where he was getting taken. And this year, obviously, he's in the first round, but he started off, you can get him in the second round. Those discounts are over. He's not falling to the second round in any draft. By the time we draft in Vegas in a couple weeks, my guess is St. Brown will move all the way up to the Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp, Eckler range. So up a couple picks.
And he very well could, and we'll see how that goes for sure. Question from the chat right away in the first round tonight. Bruce K says, it seems like the 9 spot is Bijan Robinson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who do you guys like better? Terp, it's interesting. You just sold us on Amon-Ra St. Brown, but if you had the 9 spot or the 9 pick tonight in tonight's draft, you had the choice between St. Brown or Robinson, would you be going with St. Brown still over Robinson, or is Robinson the pick there?
If you're asking me if I had a best ball or a main event team, it would be St. Brown, and it would be pretty easily. I'm not on the Bijan bandwagon like most are. That doesn't mean I won't have exposure. I just took him in a best ball draft the other day at the 10th slot, I think it was. So, I mean, he's not a guy you want to completely fade because he could smash. But to me, it's St. Brown. I mean, he could easily be wide receiver 1. That's well in the range of possibilities, especially the first 6 weeks without Jameson Williams. And even when Jameson Williams comes back, he's a wild unknown. I mean, you saw it up and down preseason. And then obviously, there's just too many questions surrounding him right now. Who else do they got? Marvin Jones, Josh Reynolds. They just gave an extension to Khalif Raymond. That name doesn't excite anybody. Nope. Yeah, I know Sam Laporta, the rookie, and Jahmyr Gibbs is there, but St. Brown's going to get 10 targets plus every game. If he doesn't, it's coach malpractice.
What about, and this is something that one of my friends locally has brought up, Terp. He said that he would not take Bijan Robinson in the first round of a fantasy draft. He's totally unsure on what this guy is going to do in the pros his first year. And I'm a fan. I would take Bijan Robinson at the end of the first round.
So would I.
Even like mid to late first round, I would take him. Like the track record for running backs with that kind of draft capital is pretty impeccable. It's pretty rare to see a team or a player running back that is drafted as high as he was and fall flat on his face in his rookie year. Look back, do your research. I can't find anything. If there's somebody I'm missing, let me know. But usually these rookies do very well. So that's the story on Bijan Robinson. You talked about St. Brown potentially finishing among the highest among receivers. Where do you land on Bijan Robinson potentially finishing among the running backs this year?
It's in the range of outcome. He could be RB1. I mean, the hype's there, the potential's there. If he is electric as a passing game as the preseason no pads look like, he could easily, that's the range of possibilities. But my fears are just pretty obvious. I don't trust Arthur Smith. I don't trust Desmond Ridder. And he has two running backs behind him that are no slouches. I'm not sitting here saying Tyler Algier or Cordell Patterson's are game breakers, but they're not just going to go away. Could Bijan Robinson, take over and run away by the end of the year? It's surely possible. But early on, I expect those guys to get touches, carries, and be annoying enough to where they're going to hurt Bijan's massive ceiling.
Terp, did a tear come to your eye when you saw Tony Pollard go at the 112 tonight?
What took so long?
I'm going to tell you what took so long is the nebulous standing of Ezekiel Elliott, who is now with the New England Patriots, which means the Cowboys can't bring him back, which means it's wheels up for Pollard.
I mean, there's only one name out there that really would worry me just a little bit. Not worry me, but just be annoying, was Leonard Fournette. Nobody else is left on that market you're seeing some real dust balls get signed. Damian Williams, Marlon Mack gets hurt the next day. Somebody else just signed today. I forget who it was. But just guys who, Melvin Gordon signed with Baltimore. I mean, these are names that just realistically shouldn't be, one to, worry about. But, Tony Pollard, my final rankings will say Tony Pollard RB1. I have him as RB2 right now. But there's just no possible way that I could ever, if I'm sitting at the 12 slot and he's there, I have to take him. I just don't. There's just all the guys that are drafted behind him. Barkley, there's a little bit of questions there. I think he's a little safer than people give him credit for. But Nick Chubb, you don't know if he's catching the ball. If Nick Chubb doesn't catch the ball, I know he does everything on the ground and dominates, but the ceiling is only so high. And when you're looking, Tony Pollard has that ceiling. I don't know if Nick Chubb does or if he doesn't catch the ball.
Terp, to lead off the second round, we saw Mark Andrews go to David Johansen's squad. Tony Pollard going in the first round, obviously. He goes with Mark Andrews on the turn. Mark Andrews is basically, over the last couple of days on Fantasy Mojo, has been a mid-second round pick, knowing that Andrews is not coming back to you if you are drafting on the back end of a Fantasy Pros Championship draft. But if you want to get him on your team, how likely would you be to soak an early second round pick on him, knowing that, listen, if you want Andrews and you're in love with him, you have to take him at the end of the second or at the beginning of the second round if you're on the right side of the board. Is that the way you would play it, or would you play okay, I like Mark Andrews, I'm going to get him elsewhere. I'm not going to overdraft him here.
I don't think there's any such thing as an overdrafting when you're picking from 12. You don't really have the luxury of value really falling to you that much, so you have to take your guys pretty much. And 12 people like to give it a bad rap because you're so far away from picks and you're just seeing value drop to this guy and that guy, and they really don't ever fall to you. But with Mark Andrews, what this guy's going to do right now is you're setting up a Lamar Jackson stack. Mm-hmm. And I would be shocked if this guy doesn't take Lamar Jackson right here. It would make so much sense and really set this team up. Obviously they'd be weak at receiver, but Lamar Jackson and a receiver here, and you're pretty much two positions down. You got an anchor running back, and you could just pound the receiver position. So from the 12 slot, you got to get a little creative. But this drafter, if he takes Lamar Jackson right here, it just wheels up.
Yeah, this is David Johansen's team, Trolls versus ADP, drafting at the 12 spot tonight. Pollard at the 112, Mark Andrews at the 201. He does indeed go with Lamar Jackson here at the 301 tonight, so that makes perfect sense based on what Terp was saying. Let's get back into the second round here. Devontae Adams at the 203. Terp, we got some injury news that he left a practice early a few days back with a leg injury. Certainly that is not slowing the roll on Derek Torres here, who ends up taking Devontae Adams at the 203. The ADP for Adams has dipped a little bit, but he is still going at the 204. So this makes perfect sense. The injury stuff with Devontae Adams apparently a non-issue, right?
It doesn't seem like it's anything serious. I mean, guys getting injured right now, like Jalen Waddle's banged up. Obviously, Garrett Wilson was banged up. Devontae Adams being banged up. It's not always the worst thing in the world. Cooper Kupp. You don't really want to see these guys messing around in the preseason. Yeah, work off to the side. Get some. Make sure you're training and all that stuff, and you're in shape and stretching and doing all that cool stuff. But like, I'd rather you not be out there in preseason games. I mean, these guys are. Devontae Adams is a proven veteran, one of the best receivers, if not the best in football. I mean, I faded him last year. Didn't think he was going to, figure it out with Derek Carr, and that definitely came back and bit me. This year, I'm on the same path though. So the injury history, if he fell to a certain spot, at the late second round, which he's not going to probably, I'd be more inclined to take him than over some of the guys that were drafted, behind him.
You're watching live Fantasy Pros Championship draft coverage. Eric Balkman, Dave Terpoli, chiming in on everything going on with these 12 drafters going for a $1 million grand prize. You can do the same at myffpc.com. Just a $350 entry to get into this draft tonight. God, it's the second time I almost called you Farrell tonight, Terp, and I apologize. And by the way, I apologize.
Flattered by that.
No, I apologize to Farrell because he would have the opposite reaction to you. Like, you don't want to be called Farrell. Farrell doesn't want to be called Terp. It is what it is.
Wouldn't bother me at all.
Patrick Mahomes at the 209 tonight. He goes to GH Divine at the 209, one spot before Ryan Cleary can get his Kansas City stack with Kelsey and Mahomes. Where do you stand on stack blocking, in not only the Fantasy Pro Championship, the main event, either one of the FFPC best ball tournaments we have going on right now? Do you look out for that, or are you just focused on your team, and however your team falls, you're going to draft it that way?
I just think it's absolutely moronic. I mean, I don't understand why there's plenty of people out there that they go in the drafts and that they look to do that stuff. I don't understand why. Like, the Christian McCaffrey team, it's different because Mahomes is any of those guys could take him and it wouldn't be a bad pick. But like, if Mahomes made it to the third round, the guy in the second slot took him for really no apparent reason. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're absolutely going out of your way to block people's stacks, like, why are you even drafting? You're supposed to be drafting to win $1 million, not drafting to block Eric Balkman away from getting his KC stack. If you're that scared about KC stack, draft a better stack or draft better players. Real simple. You got the Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith. It worked out perfectly for you. So, I mean, that gives you the option is I've seen a lot of Travis Kelsey teams so far start off and then take Mahomes in the second round, which I think is a bad decision. I think you should try to, if you're that close to the turn, you should gamble and try to get him in the third round. And if for whatever reason Devonta Smith falls there, to start off Kelsey, Devonta Smith, it gives you two-way out to two of the best quarterbacks, if not the best, top 1-2 this year. It gives you the out to, the quarterback stack that you can get, and then the draft wheels up after that.
And that's what Ryan Cleary did here in the third round. We'll get to the third round in a second. There's a couple more picks I'm going to talk about in the second round. But Jalen Hurts pairs up with Devontae Smith for Cleary here. Smith at the 210, Jalen Hurts at the 303 tonight. So he doesn't get the Mahomes Kelsey stack, but he does get the Smith Hurts stack. The 211 tonight, Terp, was Jonathan Taylor. Now, his ADP, based on the news we got, that he is going to report sometime this week. While his trade request still does exist, he is reporting to Colts camp right now. He, over the last couple of days in the Fantasy Pros Championship, has come in at the 302. Tonight, he goes at the 211. And this makes perfect sense because Le'Veon's Balls, who is drafting second tonight, that's Colin Baxter, looked at it like, you know what? Team one doesn't have any running backs. I'm going to bet that he's going to take Taylor if I let him fall here. He doesn't let him fall. He takes Taylor at the 211. What are your thoughts on getting Taylor here now as a late second-round pick based on the latest news we've heard out of Indianapolis?
I personally would love Jonathan Taylor to get back as quick as possible. There was never a doubt that he wasn't getting back. So he moves up a little bit because he's not a guy that I'm on that much, even if he's back. But if he falls down to this range, I mean, you got to take a thought about it. I mean, nobody really fell. The first 20 or so picks have kind of been just ADP, boom, 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 boom. There hasn't been many, quarterbacks get moved up. Like Mahomes got moved up a little bit, but nothing crazy. no Olave falls, no Devonta Smith falls, really. Gary Wilson has been falling a little bit in these. No Barkley, none of those guys. No Mark Andrews, obviously. So to me, yeah, the 1-2 slot, people say it's the greatest pick, and you get Chase or you get Kelsey or you get Jefferson. But the second round and the third round get a little dicey if some of these guys don't fall back. I mean, look at all the 4 guys right there, like Jonathan Taylor, massive questions. Ramondre Stevenson. We'll get to that later, but still massive questions right now. TJ Hawkinson fits the format, but holding in, or is he's not practicing? Is there a worry there? Nobody knows. And then Derrick Henry, who in that slot's a great pick, but still questions. New offense. Are they going to open it up more, throw the ball more? So, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, I think, is a good spot for him, but I don't know. If I'm taking 1-2, I'm going to try to target my guys more, and he wouldn't classify that.
The final pick of the second round is Ramondre Stevenson tonight at the 212 to Taylor Kofke. What are your thoughts on Stevenson still going at the end of the second round based on the fact that we know the Patriots have signed Ezekiel Elliott for the 2023 season term?
There's 3 things to worry about for me in New England. Number 1, Bill Belichick. It's just a massive worry every single season. We've seen his usage on running backs over the years. Last year, the Stevenson usage was top notch. But the second thing you got to worry about is they've clearly been looking for guys that all off season. You've seen guys, Lenny Fournette was just there, and now they just signed Ezekiel Elliott, who I've been on the show 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times. I think he's dusty, but he's still an annoyance. He's still a guy that's going to get some goal line work. And you just don't know if, is that going to hurt Stevenson? He shouldn't hurt him in the pass game, but this is also a slow offense. Like, no speed. Mike Gesicki hurt. Gives him that up the field, push tight end. Now it's just Hunter Henry, Devontae Parker, Kendrick Bourne, Juju. I mean, you're talking about a lot of boring names. So the deep shots that open up the field for these running back dump offs and these running back screens aren't going to be there. So am I worried about Stevenson? Yes. The third thing is just a new offensive coordinator. I mean, last year it was a disaster in New England offensively, but that was the benefit of Stevenson. Bill O'Brien might try to switch things up a little bit, give other guys touches. Clearly, he didn't think Stevenson could handle the, every down workload. So they brought in Zeke. Pierre Strong still there as an annoyance. And we don't know what we're getting out of Mac Jones. So to me, Stevenson should move down a little bit more, mid-third round type of situation. Then, if you're starting 2 receivers, it makes sense. But I can't take him there, no.
Let's get into a couple of picks here that went basically a half round ahead of ADP tonight, Turb. And I'll lead things off with the GA Express. That's GH Divine at the 304 tonight, drafting their first wide receiver tonight, 14th receiver off the board, Keenan Allen. That's about a half round ahead of where he normally goes. When you look at just sort of the Chargers offense in general this time of year with Eckler, Everett, Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston, are you willing to especially this early in the draft, is a half round reach too early, or is that like, okay, that seems about right based on what the Chargers are going to do on offense this year? Your thoughts on Keenan Allen, about a half round ahead of his ADP tonight?
I like the pick. A lot. My guess is the guy was trying to set up something with Herbert. Herbert quarterbacks went on a little run there in the 4th round. But with that offense, the good thing about the offense is these guys aren't going to move up that much. You're not going to see any big risers unless somebody gets hurt. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, obviously Gerald Everett, being in the tight end, premium. Austin Eckler is where he is. But the 3 receivers that you're really targeting, they're kind of staying around where they've been going the whole time. I mean, Keenan Allen's been moving up a little bit, but there's still questions there. But I'm buying as many pieces as I can of this offense. It's my favorite offense this year, to really blow up. But we talked about it a bunch of times. Which guy is going to be the guy? Keenan Allen's probably the safest, but he's also, very risky with the injuries. If he's out there, give me Keenan Allen every time. But we don't know that. He's getting up there in age. Mike Williams, they're saying he's going to play out of the slot. That's great news for fantasy football. Mike Williams is a guy that you can get, end of the, beginning of the 5th round, he went here, but he's been falling in some of these drafts to the 5th, 6th round. Outstanding pick there. And then Quentin Johnson, you're going to see the ebbs and flows. You saw him in the first preseason game. He's going to have some moments and he's going to have some dark moments. So Give me Keenan Allen right there, especially over some of the guys that went like right after him, like Najee Harris. No thanks. T. Higgins. No thanks. Jahmyr Gibbs, I probably would have took over Keenan Allen, but Josh Allen, depending on the structure. But I love the Keenan Allen pick. I have no issues with going where he went.
We're going to get back to that Najee Harris pick in a second, but I do want to get to your mother on YouTube chiming in right now. He wants to know, why is Chubb so low? And I looked at this. Nick Chubb goes at the 205 tonight, Terp, as the first running back drafted by Tigo. That is Richard Patika's team tonight at the 8 spot. He gets Chubb about a half round later than he normally goes. Chubb normally goes 111, 112. He gets him a little bit later tonight. Is there a reason that you think Chubb fell tonight, or is this just one of the idiosyncrasies of depends what draft you get into, anything can happen, and something happened tonight with Nick Chubb?
100%. I mean, I just think, people look at him as not that exciting. Like, you're not, there's just no, if he's not catching the ball, is he really more exciting than Barkley and Pollard? Even when they have bad games, will get you a solid floor. So with Chubb, if he could easily rush 25 times for 80 yards in a PPR league, in a league where you need to score points, to get to the top, it's not really as exciting. So I'm not sitting here saying I'm off Chubb. I have a lot of Chubb, but seeing where he's going, and I think it's just a little bit early. He should not be going in the first round of drafts because there's no way you could tell, no matter what the coaches say, that he's going to be out there and catching the ball. He's never done it before. So what makes you think he's going to just explode this year? And if he does, for that small chance, I mean, he has running back one upside, but I have my doubts.
You have your doubts there. Let's talk about another pick that you have your doubts on, and that's Najee Harris tonight. The first running back off the board drafted by Brent Studebaker tonight at the 305. Now, if you look at Najee Harris's ADP on FantasyMojo.com, he is going at the 310. Basically. So you're looking at not quite a half round of value, but there is a half round of value there. Terp, weigh in on this. Tell me why that's still a bad pick. Do you like Jaylen Warren that much? Is it the volume that the aggregator tag that is assigned to Najee Harris? What don't you like about Najee Harris at the 305 tonight?
I think it's just too early. I like Jaylen Warren. I looked at my exposure today, and my top 3 guys through all contests: number 1, Antonio Gibson; number 2, Christian Watson; number 3, Jaylen Warren. So I'm very high on him. I think he's going to be an annoyance and the guy who could eventually take over the job. I just don't really think Najee Harris is an efficient runner. I know they, improved their offensive line, and they got the guy from Georgia, the tight end, who's pretty much another offensive lineman, and that's cool and all. But I think it's going to be more of a Pickett show this year. I think they could say all they want about they're going to run the ball a ton and use a little play action, but they have weapons now. They have solid Pickens, Johnson, Freiermuth, Dusty Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin, who has some speed on the outside. I like Pittsburgh this year, but I just like Jaylen Warren a bunch of rounds later.
That is the 3rd round tonight. Let's get you into the 4th round here tonight. Judy and Jacobs go off the board to teams 12 and 11, followed by Darren Waller to Derek Torres. Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow back-to-back quarterbacks here for Rich Bilyeu and Richard Patrica. Then you're looking at DJ Moore and Christian Watson off the board to the former $500,000 winners of the Football Guys Players Championship. That is Brady David and Donnie Andrews. Again, not the team tonight that they normally have been. They are drafting separately from the 6th spot and the 7th spot tonight. Justin Fields is the 7th quarterback drafted by Brent Studebaker. Aaron Jones falls to the 409 as running back 13 to GH Devine, Amari Cooper, Joe Mixon, and Breece Hall off the board. At the end of the 4th round, Mixon to Colin Baxter. Taylor Kofke ends up taking Breece Hall. That is the 4th round, ladies and gentlemen. What's up, Terp, here at the end of the 2nd round? We have a situation that I think somebody chimed in on. If I can find it here in the YouTube chat, I'll show it to everybody. And it is right here that Bruce K said that Team 2 is going old school tonight. Jamar Chase as the first pick tonight at the 102 for Colin Baxter. And then Taylor, Henry, Mixon, ETN. 4 straight running backs. What do you make of that start from Colin Baxter tonight from the 2-hole, Terp?
It's risky. I mean, a lot of the guys, the way he started with Chase, Taylor, Henry, I'm obviously a big ETN guy, not the biggest Mixon guy. I feel like you're putting yourself a little bit behind the 8 ball with Joe Mixon. I feel like that pick could have been somewhere else, and this team would have been a lot better, in my opinion. I mean, it's 4 running back starts. You don't see them that much anymore. Everybody's wide receiver crazy, so it's a little bit of a zig. When you're being a little different, which I respect. But you're 2 positions down right now. No tight ends, no kickers. Wow, no tight ends, no quarterbacks,
no kickers.
And there's going to be plenty of running backs value that's going to fall here. There hasn't been many that went so far. So to me, the receiver position, the tight end position, and obviously the quarterback position, you're going to be way behind. It's risky, not something I probably would do.
That is what's going on with Colin Baxter. We're trying to get him on the show right now. We'll back to you in a little bit. Last thing I want to bring up in the 4th round here, Terp. Breece Hall at the 412 tonight as running back 15. Now, Breece Hall over the last couple of days, and again, some of these drafts include the news that Dalvin Cook was not yet a Jet, which he is now, which is going to make Hard Knocks very enjoyable this week. Well, not this week, but next week.
I've seen some clips.
Hard Knocks. Hold on. You've seen some clips with Dalvin Cook?
No, not Dalvin Cook. Just on Hard Knocks.
Okay, all right, yeah. Cook. So I would say, listen, you're probably, if you're watching this, you're probably better off skipping Hard Knocks tonight, because I don't know how much the Jets waxed Carolina or whoever they played last week. It's probably not going to be a great show this week. Next week, I think it will be very compelling with Dalvin Cook in the fold. But your thoughts on Breece Hall, normally going as running back 15. Over the last 48 hours, Breece Hall, 405 on average. He falls to the 412 tonight. Terp, if you're drafting in the Fantasy Pros Championship, end of the 4th round, does that seem right to you with Breece Hall, or would you be reaching up to grab him earlier?
I mean, it's just the ebb and flows of the NFL. Yesterday, everybody was writing Breece Hall off. Dalvin Cook signed for a good contract, a lot more money than I thought he was going to get. And Breece Hall was dust. He was gone. Nobody worried about him. Today, they activate him off the PUP list. And you find out Dalvin Cook can't practice for a week. He's not ready yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's crazy, the dips and the discounts that people are getting right now in drafts. It's definitely another reason why you should be drafting a lot now. It's definitely a good time because a lot of these guys are just getting their legs. They've been sitting out. They're holding out. The Jonathan Taylors of the world, J.K. Dobbins. The list goes on. But with Breece Hall, he's a league-winning upside. To take him in the 4th round, pair him with Justin Jefferson, you'll be pretty unique, I would think. Getting with, obviously Stevenson, taking the 2 running backs in the last 48 hours with the biggest questions right now. So I take Breece Hall in the 4th round. I have no questions about him. I hope he moves a little bit more, get a little Dalvin Cook puff piece. I'm not a Dalvin Cook supporter this year. I think he's just holding it until Breece Hall's 100%, which there are questions. No guarantees at all that Breece Hall is going to be 100%, but I'll bet on his profile and give me Breece Hall at that spot all the time.
All right, sounds good. We are on the clock here at the 6:11 tonight. Still working with Colin Baxter to try to get in right now to talk about his team from the 2nd spot tonight. So that's your take on Breece Hall tonight. We are through the 5th round here tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as we go through the Fantasy Pros Championship draft that features 12 teams drafting for a $1 million grand prize. Terp, let's weigh in on Team 4 tonight. G.H. Devine, DeAndre Hopkins at the 504, wide receiver 25 tonight. A guy that is now in Tennessee, should be seeing a lot of targets. But how valuable are those targets, knowing that Tennessee could be a low-volume passing offense? Your thoughts on drafting DeAndre Hopkins in the mid-5th tonight, knowing both the pros and the cons of his game in 2023?
You definitely have a lot of pros. Obviously, he's one of the best receivers for the last couple of years. But like you said, there's the worry of Tennessee, and there's the worry of he wasn't that great last year. I mean, he didn't look like his explosive self. I know he's banged up a little bit, but I worry about that offense. You have Treylon Burks on the other side, who's no slouch. We know my love affair with him. Chig, solid tight end, should emerge a little bit more this year. But the passing, you just don't know. They say they're going to do it, but every team says they're going to do something. That doesn't mean when you have Derrick Henry back there, you're not going to pound the ball 30 times. So to me, is DeAndre Hopkins safe? I think he's safe. Do I think he has league-winning upside in Tennessee, at the 5th round where you're kind of looking for guys, with that big, good potential bumps, the Drake Londons, the Christian Kirks, Mike Williams possibly. We talk about Christian Watson a bunch, Amari Cooper, all those guys I would take over Hopkins.
Do you make anything of Kamara here at the 5-11 tonight? Alvin Kamara, and I think we had Bruce K chiming in on the YouTube chat right now. He was surprised to see Kamara going in the 5th round tonight. His ADP over the last 48 hours in the Fantasy Pros Championship, as we go to the Mojo right now, lands him in at the 703 on average. So Terp, somebody clearly liking Alvin Kamara tonight. That is Frank Imbornoni to get his number 2 running back in the 5th round, the late 5th round tonight. What do you make of Kamara? Not necessarily, I mean, you can answer this question in a vacuum, but also with Frank Imbornoni's team, where he already had Lamb, A.J. Brown, and Ridley, gets Josh Jacobs in the 4th. Now he gets Kamara in the 5th. Trying to win $1 million here, and I think this is we can kind of see the path for Imbornoni here.
Looking at this team, let's just go for the last 3 picks. I mean, Josh Jacobs, where you got him, is outstanding value. I expect him to be back soon. He can try to, play hardball and think he's going to sit out, but it's only going to last for so long. The Kamara pick is a little bit of a reach for me. I mean, there's still so many questions with the Saints. You just don't. Kendrick Miller's hurt, should be out a while, but they said, no major injuries. I still think, down the stretch, he's the guy that I would own, but he's also a rookie, and a rookie who's missing time in camp, so that's a big worry. Mm-hmm. Jamal Williams is what Jamal Williams is. I keep hearing about Kamara's camp. He's definitely a guy that, I was off, that I'll definitely move up, try to get some more exposure to as we get closer to Vegas. With, Kendrick Miller being banged up, and then obviously Kareem Hunt not coming to town. Coming off the 3-game suspension, which I thought he was going to get more. I think that's a really good pick. And let's also talk about a 6th pick while we're here. I mean, George Kittle. I can't tell you the last time in a tight end premium. It's been weird. Quarterback's been getting pushed up. Tight ends have been getting pushed down. Usually Goddard and Kittle are set in the 5th round of these drafts with Kyle Pitts, pretty much in lockstep. To get George Kittle where he got him, outstanding value. This is a very, very well-drafted team so far.
I want to get back to the Kamara pick at the 5-11 tonight, Terp. When you talk about how you're treating Kamara right now in fantasy drafts, they were hosting the defending world champs. And again, I know Patrick Mahomes, it's not like he played into the 4th quarter or anything like that. But in limited time, Alvin Kamara, 3 carries, 14 yards, 2 catches for 21 yards. I mean, I know you said you're moving him up. How significant is that move up for Kamara right now, given that, again, he is normally, as I said earlier when the pick was made, running back 27 in the early 7th round?
A lot of it depends on structure. Obviously, I draft a lot of best ball teams, so Kamara is a guy that I need to get a little more exposure to. But we'll be doing plenty of fantasy pros and main events as we get closer to the end of the season. It's just Kamara is a guy that, if you look at the overall offense, they clearly say, they're saying all the right things. And the right things sometimes are wrong, but it seems like there's a lot of positive press. The Kendrick Miller injury, missing a lot of camp, could, give him he might start the season on the PUP list. And him starting the season on the PUP list will put him even farther behind. So if it's a Jamal Williams and Kamara show, I even like Kamara more because, like I said, we know what Jamal Williams is. He's a good NFL running back. He'll never be used in a word that's great or anything better than that.
Right.
So Kamara, we've seen, plenty of opportunity where he's been league winner. So 5'11", or I think it was 5'11" where he got picked. A little rich for my blood, but in the 6th round with the right structure, I'll take a shot.
I'm looking at the Steelers ADP for receivers right now in the Fantasy Pros Championship on FantasyMojo.com. Now, on average, Deontay Johnson, 5'11", George Pickens at the 703. Wide receiver 27, wide receiver 33. Tonight, it ended up going Deontay Johnson, 601, wide receiver 30, wide receiver 33 at the 6'11 for George Pickens. Was this a boon for Deontay Johnson for Team 12, which is David Johansen, to get him there as his number 3 receiver? Or should the distance between Johnson and Pickens be a lot closer than what it is in high-stakes fantasy football right now, Dave Tripoli?
I think Johnson should be going exactly where he's going. There should be a little bit of distance, not a ton. I mean, I think Deontay Johnson, what you're going to get. He's going to get a ton of targets every single game. That's not going to change, even with the emergence of George Pickens. I think that even helps Deontay Johnson. And we all know Deontay Johnson scores some touchdowns. We're talking about Deontay Johnson in the 2nd, 3rd round. It wouldn't even be a question. I mean, we know that the coach is going to game plan to get him the ball. We've seen it same offensive coordinator. I love George Pickens. Loved him coming out of school. Loved him last year. It looks like he's improved his route running, which is great. We know he has the big playability. It all comes down to Kenny Pickett, but I think Deontay Johnson clearly should be first. But Pickens, not a bad pick where he's going. So Deontay Johnson first, obviously by, I would say, maybe a round and a half.
Team 7, according to Derek Greer tonight, is looking really good. That is the Nightman Cometh. That's Brady David's team, the 2021 co-champion of the Football Guys Players Championship, a winner of a $500,000 grand prize, along with his co-owner, Donnie Andrews, who's drafting in the 6th spot tonight. Terp, can you talk a little bit about Team 7 tonight? Brady David, no quarterbacks, no tight ends yet, but he is loaded at the other running back and receiver positions. Eckler, Gibbs, Dobbins, and then Garrett Wilson, DJ Moore, London, and Smith and Jigba.
Dream start. I mean, really getting Eckler, getting Gibbs. Obviously, J.K. Dobbins, I think, should be higher. Getting him in the 7th round is outstanding. And those receivers, nothing negative to say about them. I mean, they all have, potential, on their team. Garrett Wilson, we talked about 100 times. DJ Moore, obviously flashed in preseason with his long touchdown. Drake London should be the target monster, I would think, in Atlanta. And then JSN. I mean, are we worried about Pete Carroll? Of course. JSN's the one question mark of this team, but I feel like a team like Seattle, they're taking a guy like JSN, they're going to start using more 3 receiver sets, and if they do that, JSN he could outscore DK Metcalf this year. I don't think.
Wow. Wow. Well, I mean, there's a non-zero chance of everything.
It's within the range of possibilities.
Yeah.
Likely, no, but it's within the range of possibilities.
Terp, SNS Sports Collectibles, let's go to their question here. They have the first pick in the main event, one of the main event live drafts after the Thursday night game between Kansas City and Detroit. He says, let's say Kelsey goes for 24 FFPC tight end premium points, but Mahomes still scores more. He says, look, I'm not going to get the stack at that point. Would you still take Kelsey with that pick in the early mains? Having that draft stack, the people who drafted before that, would you still take Kelsey at the 101?
This is such a great question.
Go ahead, Terp. I'll answer after you.
This is such a great question because you're competing against so many Kelsey versus Mahomes stacks. Let's just say it's a high-scoring game. Mm-hmm. Exactly the scenario that he put out there. You're not getting Mahomes. Somebody's going to take him before your 2nd-round pick. You just know it. If Kelsey gets 24, I probably pass on. I take Jefferson or Chase, whatever your fancy is. If he's getting up in the 30 range, I feel like you have to take Kelsey. You're not getting Mahomes, but there's plenty of other ways you can be different, to separate yourself a little bit. But there's also, we talked about a bunch of times, what if St. Brown goes for 30, 35, and Kelsey goes for 24?
Or Jahmyr Gibbs. What about Jahmyr Gibbs, too?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, will never get to the number 1, number 2. I mean, I guess he could.
But he could affect the number 1, number 2.
He could affect it a lot to where we've seen the number 1 pick, number 2 pick be wacky. Peyton Manning, Broncos game a couple years ago when he went nuts, went number 1 in a couple main events in Vegas. That Thursday game makes people do wacky stuff. But his question, if Kelsey gets 24, I'm probably taking Jefferson or Chase. Because
go ahead.
You're behind. You're going to be. Yeah, I know your goal is to win your league, but your goal is also you're entering this to win $1 million. Let's call it what it is. And if you make it with Kelsey at the end, you're going to be going against a ton of Mahomes teams. And I feel like you have to be so perfect at the quarterback position to be able to, and every other position to be different to get past those teams. So to me, 24 points, Jefferson or Chase for me.
To offer the counter argument to Terp, and while I don't disagree with what he just said there, I still am of the opinion that you are drafting your squad for the course of the season. And I understand that the Thursday night game week 1 should have a bearing on how you draft your teams. That said, even if Kelsey comes up a little bit short of what you were hoping for in week 1 against a horrible, maybe historically horrible Detroit Lions defense, I am still, regardless, if that scenario plays out, that Sports Collectibles is playing out right now for us, I still would take Kelsey. at that point, maybe to my own detriment, but I would still take Kelsey and hope for the best. He gives you a massive advantage at tight end for the course of the season. And with 2 flexes and only having to start 2 receivers, I'm willing to roll the dice there. Not saying it's the right play. Terp would say it's not the right play, but I think I could sleep well at night.
I wouldn't say it's not the right play. I would just say it's I mean, if your goal is, like you said, if your goal is to win your 12-team league, it's the right play, taking Kelsey there and not worrying about Mahomes. If your goal is, if you have one chance or you're in a you get a bunch of teams, I would always pass on Kelsey. But if it's a 1-team scenario or a 2-team scenario, I'm taking the guy to win my league, because you got one team you're trying to win, the guaranteed money to get them the top 2 seeds, or you're trying to win your overall league. Everything else is gravy after that. But these guys who are 20, 30 main events, passing Kelsey every time.
I think that's a good point as far as game theory goes into it. If you are, just drafting 1 or 2 teams or whatever, it changes your strategy, right? 100%. Not saying that's good or bad, but it does change your strategy at that point.
Correct.
So for sure. Terp, you make a lot of sense there. Let's get to another guy who makes a lot of sense, a guy who is no stranger to the FFPC social media channels, be it YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. Let's bring him on right now. He is drafting from the 5 spot tonight, Mr. Stud Dynasty himself, one half of the Studebaker legends in the FFPC. It is the incomparable Brent Studebaker joining us tonight from the 5 spot. Brent, welcome into the show. How's your draft going so far tonight, man?
Balky Dave, it's going pretty good. Getting Javonte Williams and then Rashad White later. I wish I would have waited, but you got to take what the draft gives you.
All right, so there's a lot to unpack with your draft. I want to start it off at the top. Cooper Kupp at the 105. He's kind of a polarizing guy right now, knowing that you are talking about a player who is hurt but should be back by the regular season, but it's a team in disarray and a guy who is coming up on the wrong side of 30 after this season. Your thoughts on Cooper Kupp when you could have had a guy like Tyreek Hill, could have had Austin Eckler, Diggs, whatever, but you end up going with Kupp there. Tell us a little bit about the thought process behind that.
I was torn in between Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill. I talked to my buddy Spree at last, Jake Bleach. Made a lot of sense. You take Kupp. How many points he averaged last year before he got hurt? They're going to have to throw the ball. The defense is non-existent. I'm not worried about the soft hammy injury to him right now, like Dave was talking about. I want my studs on the sidelines during OTAs.
Yeah. Brent, what about we talked about your Najee Harris pick at the 305 a little bit. I
accept too. I saw your offer. I accept.
Hey, I forgot to. I was going to post that. Okay, so let me see if I can find it. Brent, what was the offer that you extended to Terp about the Najee Harris selection here tonight?
Najee finishes in the top 10 for running backs, and he will. It's $100 bet.
I accept.
There you go. I'm trying to find it. So basically even odds, right? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, of course.
So Brent Studebaker, $100 side bet to charity. Oh, it's the charity. Perfect. Najee Harris finishes top 10. Brent says yes. Terp says no. I am a witness. I will take no cut of this. I want it all going to charity. We have a bet tonight, gentlemen.
Yes, 100%. We're in.
All right, perfect. Studebaker v. Terpoli. You saw it first on the FFPC YouTube channel tonight. Brent, sell us on I was going to say sell us on Studebaker. You don't have to do that. Sell us on Najee Harris here tonight at the 305 for you.
Well, a lot of the season he was hurt last year, and then at the end of the year he got healthy, pounded, looked great at the end of the year. They drafted O-linemen, brought some in. Everybody's talking big about Kenny Pickett. It's going to be a Kenny Pickett year with Freiermuth and Pickens and Deontay, which I agree. Deontay is going to have a big tick. But if they're spreading the field and throwing the ball, they're not going to stack the box. Najee is going to be healthy. Najee is going to run, and he'll find the holes. I mean, that's what he did his rookie year. If they have the safeties playing on top for Deontay Johnson, I mean, that leaves a lot of openings for Najee, both catching and running the ball.
Brent, were you surprised at how fast the quarterbacks are going off the board? I mean, you get Justin Fields tonight here as the quarterback 7, which is where he is going, but it's basically a full round ahead of where he normally goes as far as ADP goes. But I mean, Mahomes, Hurts, Allen, Jackson, Burrow, Herbert, they were already off the board tonight. How important was it for you to get Fields, or at least an elite quarterback here, as you were drafting in the 4th round tonight and getting Fields at the 408?
I think it's pretty critical to get someone that can run the ball and pass it. Hopefully he can pass. You know, DJ Moore wasn't a pass, but it was a 60-yard little swing pass. I like Fields just because his rushing ability. So, yeah, it's a quarterback, but I'm going to get more points per week from him rushing.
Can you talk a little bit more about, and this is something that, again, maybe I'm the Javonte Williams fanboy of Fantasy Football Podcast, but I still am surprised that he is going as low as he is in the Fantasy Pros Championship, the main event, Superflex tournaments that we got going on over at the FFPC. If you look at where Javonte Williams' ADP is, and again, this is over the last 48 hours, where we knew a couple of weeks ago that he would be playing in preseason games, that he would be playing from the get-go after shredding his knee last year at the start of preseason. Javonte Williams is still going at running back 22 at the 605 on average. You got him tonight at the 608, which is a value. I think this guy should be going like the 3rd or 4th round. I'm baffled to see why he's slipping. Why do you think he's slipping? And can you sell us on why Javonte Williams is a smart choice in either the 5th or 6th round tonight, Brent?
I think he's slipping because of they looked abysmal the whole year. The thing about why I'm so big on him, one, he's going to be back. I think people are scared of Samaje Perine. I'm scared because of Sean Payton. Look what Sean Payton did with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. I think they had like 400 points in a fantasy season together. It's stupid. Like that people don't take in consideration what Sean Payton does for running back.
Mm-hmm. What about Brent? This is something coming in from Team 2 tonight. This is Colin Baxter, and he writes in when we're talking about the Justin Fields pick. He says, Fields can run, but Anthony Richardson can run and pass, and that's who they took at the 902 tonight, or that's who Colin Baxter took at the 902
Kenny?
tonight. Hold on. And he writes, Brent, with peace and love to Mr. Stud Dynasty. That is how he addressed this question to you. You take Fields at the 408. He likes Richardson, the 902. Like, listen, and I'll address this to Colin. It's pretty clear that Richardson can run. But as far as an NFL passing game goes, I'm not so sure he can pass yet. Am I wrong in thinking that, Brent Studebaker?
I mean, he didn't throw the ball a lot in college at Florida. As you know, Bucky, I'm a big South Carolina fan.
Yep.
You put pressure on Anthony Richardson, he got happy feet. And I'm not going to trust him rookie year. I understand why people are. The upside is if he hits, it's a boom. I get it. In a tournament like this, I would rather have Fields or, Josh Allen naturally, but I don't want to take the risk on a rookie quarterback in this kind of league or tournament.
Brent, the other thing I should ask you here too is I feel like it's rare that we get this opportunity, but with your 7, 8, 9 picks tonight, 7th round, 8th round, 9th round, you go Rachaad White, Elijah Moore, and Kadarius Toney. At the risk of being wrong, but I don't think I am. I think all 3 of those guys are kind of polarizing this year, with White being a guy that is slipping in drafts, and I'm not sure I understand why. Elijah Moore, who has a lot of talent, fresh look, new scene in Cleveland as opposed to New York last year, but he is behind Amari Cooper. And then Kadarius Toney, a guy who could be the number 1 in Kansas City if he could only stay healthy. Can you talk a little bit about the fact that you made these White, Moore, Toney picks in the 7th, 8th, 9th round when you're trying to beat not just 11 teams, but thousands of teams in this Fantasy Pros Championship?
Yeah, when it comes to Rachaad White, I expect Tampa Bay to be down a lot this year. Whether Trask or Baker at quarterback, they're going to dump it off. Rachaad White, as long as he gets the catches, everything else, the points, they'll line up. So I'm not concerned. I'll take the fall of Rachaad White where I got him any given day. Elijah Moore's kind of sneaky for me. I worry about Cooper, he never. I mean, he always seems injured. He gets his hammy problems, but I love what I saw him coming out of the backfield. They lost Kareem Hunt. They want to pass catch him back, but they could use him as a catcher out of the backfield. And I love that aspect for him. Not to mention, I think he was underutilized with the Jets. He got in the doghouse last year, and they just stopped working the game plan. Kadarius Toney, like you said, for me, he's got a potential to be the number one on that team. You saw what speed can do with Patrick Mahomes. I'll take the chance. I mean, in a big tournament, you've got it's all to me. A big tournament like this, they either hit and you win big, or they don't. I mean, it's simple as that. And I'm looking at the bigger picture. If they hit, yeah, I got a chance. If they don't, then obviously I wouldn't have a chance. But I'm gonna risk it.
Brent, do you find yourself in the main event or the Fantasy Pros Championship just drafting like that normally, like where you are looking upside? You know, normally when I'm drafting a team, I'll start looking at upside, and this is like, I guess this is more advice if you're drafting in a closed 12-team league. I'll start looking at upside after round 10, right? But in this national tournament where you have to beat out so many other teams, do you start looking at upside and start swinging for home runs earlier than the 10th round because you have to beat out so many other squads?
To me, yeah, I'm gonna look at risking whatever I have. I'm in it to win. I don't want the 12 to 15 point players every single week. I'd rather 12 to 15 with 35 points, you know, on the back. And I feel, especially with Tony and Rashad White, you're gonna have 20 to 30 point week. It's gonna happen naturally in the 10th round. And something like this is when I go after. That's when I normally go after rookies. You know, you're not going to get that here because everybody's so hyped right now with Quentin Johnson. That's one I like. They're going earlier than I want established players in something like this. I don't want the rookies.
Do you feel like, Brent, that you can take advantage by ignoring rookies in this format? Do you feel like you're getting a leg up on everybody else?
Yes and no. I mean, you can contradict yourself with that. But like in the Genesis, I took Bijan at 105. I'm trying to think how to put it. I want to just go to me the highest upside player that I can take. Like Sam, that's a great pick. Love that pick. Perfect time to take him. That's who was in my queue.
You are on the clock right now in the 10th round. Brent Studebaker, Stud Dynasty, joining us tonight on the live draft coverage of the Fantasy Pros Championship. 4 receivers, 3 running backs, quarterback, tight end. I always like to say at this point, you can go a lot of different ways based on your balanced team that you drafted in the first 9 rounds here, Brent. What are your thoughts here? What are you going to do? You're looking at 51 receivers off the board, 42 running backs off the board, 12 tight ends off the board, and then, of course, 10 quarterbacks off the board. Where is the value? What are you going to do here, my friend, at the 10:08?
This one, to me, it's not pretty. I'm going to take Juju Smith. The only reason why is Mac Jones likes the underneath guy. He didn't have it last year with Myers. Myers was a bigger guy. Another potential number 1 receiver in that offense. How much they run the ball? How much do they pass the ball? That's the question mark. But he's a number 1 on that team. He's going to play the slot. Slot usually always does good in Bill Belichick football. So take the chance. You can cut him and replace him.
A blend of conservative wide receivers as well as high upside receivers, a blend of young running backs coupled with some high upside picks at quarterback and tight end tonight. He is Brent Studebaker, the Stud Dynasty squad, drafting at the 5 spot tonight, joining us live on the live draft coverage of the FFPC Fantasy Pros Championship. Brent, good luck the rest of the way. We are halfway through. You've got a good team here that honestly could have if things hit the right way, this could be $1 million winning squad. I know you would say, Bulky, don't say that. I don't want to hear it. Like, just be conservative about it right now, but I'm going to call it like I see it. I could see a path. I'm Doctor Stranging it right now. I can see the path to a $1 million grand prize for you. Brent, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank y'all. Y'all have a good night.
Thank
You
you,
too.
Brent Baker, the Stud Dynasty 26er, joining us tonight here on live draft coverage of the Fantasy Pros Championship. Dave Tripoli, I'm Eric Balkman here as we are meeting the halfway point of the draft tonight here on the FFPC YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook channels. I cannot remember exactly where we left off, but I want to center in on some picks tonight that I think are interesting. And I'll kick things off at the 702 tonight for you, Terp. That is Colin Baxter's squad. Jordan Addison as his number 3 wide receiver. Now, we talked about this team a little bit earlier, hitting those running backs in rounds 2 through 5. Taylor, Henry, Mixon, ETN. And then he gets Pickens at the 6'11", Addison at the 702. 2 young receivers. Again, this is a squad that to me looks like loaded for bear when you're trying to win a 7-figure grand prize. Because if one or two of those running backs hit, you already have Chase, and then you have a couple of young receivers that could break out this year in Pickens and Addison. What do you make of the Addison pick at 702 for Baxter's squad at the 2-hole?
Everything you said is spot on. I mean, with Pickens and Addison, it gives them that upside. Addison is starting to get a little bit more positive press. And the one thing you said about the Lions being a terrible defense, the Vikings defense this year might be all-time bad, so they're going to have to throw the ball a ton. And what that means is obviously Jefferson, Addison, Hawkinson, and maybe some KJ Osborne mixed in. So to me, he did a good job after taking 4 running backs in a row. The Dalvin Cook pick doesn't really make that much sense to me, but upside with Jameson Williams coming up. Team 2 has definitely turned around for me. Obviously, you're betting for the house on Anthony Richardson. I mean, if you take him, you're taking him as your starter, and you're hoping he's just that guy from day one with the rushing upside, and hopefully he figures out the passing. And then you're talking about a league wing potential. But I really like the structure after the weird 4 running backs in a row, which you don't see that often. But taking 2 very high upside receivers, love Pickens and love Addison.
I love it as well. I want to talk about GH Divine's team, but before we get to it, let's get into Colin Baxter's team from the 2-hole tonight. I don't believe we have video for him right now, but I'm going to bring Colin Baxter on. I believe we have audio for Colin. Colin, can you hear us? Welcome aboard.
Hey, can you hear me?
You're coming through great. Thank you so
Perfect.
much.
Hey, no disrespect. I got 30 seconds left on my pick here, so I'm kind of.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, so you listen. You think about your pick. I'm going to bring everybody up to speed on your pick here and just make the pick. I'll tell everybody what's going on with your team.
I appreciate that.
We've been talking about Colin Baxter's team quite a bit tonight. Chase was the pick at the 102 tonight, and then 4 straight running backs: Taylor, Henry, Mixon, ETN. He's pounded Pickens, Addison, and Jameson Williams as his youthful receivers in rounds 6 through 10. Already added Anthony Richardson at the 902 and supplementing all his great running back picks, Taylor, Henry, Mixon, ETN with Dalvin Cook here at the 811. Nico Collins is the pick, his first pick of the second half of the draft as his number 5 wide receiver. There you have it. Let's get into this here tonight. Colin, your thoughts on Jamar Chase, which is who you took at the 102 tonight, over Travis Kelsey. Bring us into the thought process on that, because I know a lot of our viewers tonight would be torn between Chase and Kelsey. What tipped the scales in favor of Chase for you tonight?
Well, it wasn't even about Kelsey or Kupp or Tyreek even. It was like, do I want Bijan or Amon Raw St. Brown? So I feel like you got to make some moves here in the first if you have the ability to make the moves. So I agree with Dave in that sense, to where these, like Amon could just be, we could all be kicking ourselves at the end of the year for not picking this guy. And so, but I love Jamar, and I was kind of rolling the dice, hoping I could get him at the 4 or 5 to stack with Burrow. But Burrow kind of went a little bit early with T. Higgins, so I was like, whatevs, no biggie. I still like pounding running back so hard, like old school, like the commenter said. I think it's meat and potatoes all the way to the bank, and that's kind of what I was.
He's going for his tomahawk and his loaded baked potato here.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think the thing to bring up here is if you're going to go that way, Colin, talk a little bit about Jonathan Taylor, who I know a lot of FFPC drafters are skittish about right now and are sometimes letting him to fall to the 3rd round. You weren't about to let that happen tonight. You took Taylor at the 211.
Oh, you mean like the possible number one pick from last year?
Well, he wasn't the possible number one pick from last year.
He was.
Like, it was either him or Cup in like pretty much every draft. You get him tonight at the end of the second round.
Yeah, so I thought it was like, it was a bargain basement fire sale for running backs where I was sitting, and that's kind of why I went the back-to-back Derrick Henry. I've really actually never had him in any of my teams, so it's kind of nice to have him for once, even though he is kind of possibly getting older, but he is just an animal and I love him. So
and like Terp, how do you fall in on Henry? Because I was telling this story earlier tonight to another player. I drafted Henry in the first round in like 2021, being like, oh, I've never had him before. This will be his last good year, and we can shelve him after that. And he still continues to produce this year. When you can kind of get Henry in the early third, man, that's a long, tough look. Like, you really got to consider him there.
Colin said it perfectly. He's not a guy that I'm like running to get this year, but he in this spot, with everything that fell to him, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, to get him on this team with Chase and obviously Taylor, it's definitely different. You're not going to see many teams with all three guys. So in these contests, you're trying to be a little different without being too crazy. So to get Henry where he got him, I'm on board with it. But like I said, he's not somebody that makes on a lot of my teams, but in this spot, I would have done the same thing.
Colin, how much the 411 pick tonight with Joe Mixon? Were you even considering him there, or were you just blown out of your mind that he was still available about a full round after his ADP?
Yeah, it was again a value pick with the running backs, and I was like, well, if I'm just gonna hit it, I think I read somewhere, and I have no clue where, that any running back that you draft has like a 25% chance of getting hurt. So like anytime I'm putting any sort of value into running backs, I need to have backups, and which is kind of why I went for the Dalvin Cook route, because to me, he's sort of like a nice plug and play. I know we're not best ball here, but he might shape up to be pretty amazing. And I love what New York's doing this year. And, that was sort of my, I guess, thought process in all of this. And Joe Mixon, I was like, I kind of panicked a little bit, but Aaron Jones is getting older, and, I was really, he got taken. So I was like, okay, so do I go for Kenneth Walker? Do I go for Alvin Kamara, Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers? I'm still in the meat and potatoes mindset, mind you. I feel like there's lots of value left in the wide receivers. So I liked Mixon the best out of all those guys, and I kind of was crossing my fingers for Etienne to be there. With the actual hope, I was kind of maybe guessing that Trevor Lawrence might sink to me, and that was going to be a nice stack for later. But such is life. We move on, and we George Pickens it.
Yeah, Colin, I may have to, as I get more and more deep into my drafting season, I may have to rename one of my heavy running back teams as meat and potatoes, because I think that's a strong call that you have made here. Terp absolutely loves the pick that you can get Travis Etienne in the early fifth round, about a half round later than his ADP. And I got same question here with Mixon. I don't know if you had delusions of grandeur that you were going to start off with all these heavy volume running backs here in rounds 2 through 5, but it happened with Henry, it happened with Mixon, it happened with ETN. And I think it's important to know that when the draft gives this stuff to you, you have to be willing to pivot and sort of shift your draft strategy to not only draft a league winner, but draft $1 million winner. How much did that happen tonight? How much did you shift your strategy when guys like Henry, Mixon, and ETN are falling to you?
I like to remain flexible and not like rigid, or else I feel like then you really do panic, and the clock does keep ticking, right? And so I like to see what's available, but I also like to go for my guys. I've always had a really good feeling about Travis, and I love their offense. And I know he's probably not going to be the pass catching back that everyone wants him to be, but he's still their number one back. And again, I'm still hungry. I want them meat and potatoes, and it's going to save my butt later when Derrick Henry is like injured, or Jonathan Taylor's still messing around, or I'm not really sure what'll happen. But I really liked the options at that level. I was thinking Kyle Pitts, but I got burned by him last year, so it's kind of like a never again situation.
Right. Well, like, to talk about, because I think, like, And I've had that mindset before. Like, I will never draft this guy again. He burned me last year. I'm done with him. But oftentimes I see in drafts the following year, he burned more than just me, and he will fall in drafts. So players like that, I almost feel like, well, I'm so ticked off at what he did last year. At the same time, Colin, there's some value in drafting a guy that burned you last year, right?
Oh, 100%. Like I said, he almost got picked right there.
Right.
It was him or possibly Kenneth Walker. I'm a big Seahawks fan, but I like what Charbonnet can offer later, and I feel like the Seahawks running backs just like get injured like all the time, and so it's kind of like a shooting gallery. So that seemed really risky, knowing that I still had a lot of upside with wide receivers coming back later, and I like kind of playing the late round games.
Did you? Was there any impetus in drafting Dalvin Cook at the 8-11, knowing that team one, Taylor Kofke, already had Breece Hall on his team at the end of the 4th round? Is that why you took Cook at the 8-11 as opposed to him at the 9-02?
That was, again, kind of a nice surprise. I'm like, Cook is, I still feel like I'm getting a little bit of the pre-news advantage draft round.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of envision him maybe going like 5th round in a couple weeks, just because if he's the starting quarterback for the Jets, I mean, come on.
What about your comment about, we were talking to Brent Studebaker earlier, who drafted Justin Fields at the 408 tonight. You said, listen, Fields can run, but Anthony Richardson can run and pass. He was your quarterback, 10th quarterback off the board tonight at the 902, and was named the starter today, and it shocked him, apparently. Tell us a little bit about Anthony Richardson and how you feel about him, knowing that 9 quarterbacks went before him. You got him in the 9th round.
I felt like I was actually reaching for him, and I was kind of like, I don't know if this is the best idea. But I did actually kind of want to stack him with Jonathan Taylor and see how that kind of happened. I know Jonathan Taylor is he can catch balls, and I feel like there's a little advantage there. And it's kind of like a deep stack, and everyone's stacking Mahomes and Kelsey and stack this, stack that. I like this unorthodox. And to Dave's point, Anthony Richardson might not necessarily be my starting quarterback to begin with.
That's a good point, too. That's a good point to bring up. You are on deck here. I believe you are on deck. No, you're in the hole right now.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. What should I do, guys?
Well, that's the thing. That's what we're going to ask you.
Running backs.
Ryan Cleary is on the clock here with about 30 seconds to go at the 103. And then Colin Baxter will be back up. You are looking at Baxter's team right now from the 2-hole, 5 running backs, 5 receivers, a quarterback, no tight ends yet. And there's 18 of them off the board. Your thoughts, Colin, what the pick is going to be here? I know you got to be at least looking at tight end. Whether you make that pick or not at that position is up for grabs. You just said Anthony Richardson has a non-zero chance of not being your starting quarterback in week 1. Running backs and receivers, always a good position to pound here to get depth. What's the pick going to be? You have about 30 seconds left on the clock.
Love that pick.
Boom.
Colin takes a man after my own heart, Luke Musgrave, as I am in the shadows of Lambeau Field here in Northeast Wisconsin, as his number 1 tight end. Colin, I have been stumping for this guy for quite some time. He has looked great in training camp. He looked pretty good in that Bengals game, the first preseason game, and I'm a little surprised to see a guy like Dalton Kincaid going in the 9th round, and then Luke Musgrave. Oh, was he the number 2? No, he was the number 3 rookie tight end tonight as Sam Laporta went in the 10th round. I like Musgrave this year. I think the tight end is back in Green Bay. I think he is going to have a very productive rookie season. Whether he has a productive fantasy tight end season is kind of the unknown right now, but it's hard to argue with Luke Musgrave at the 12-11.
Well, he seems pretty cheap. We're taking our swinging for the fences down here in 12, and it's like anybody's ball game. That's why I kind of reached for him. I know there's like better round value in general, but I feel like I've got my players, and then I might reach for a quarterback here, but I'm really not sure. I'm kind of going to see what happens, but wide receivers are looking a little.
I mean, you're looking at 60 receivers off the board through 12 rounds. So that's basically by my math, I think that's 5 receivers per round, which seems a little high. I'd have to look at the mojo on that. I don't know. Terp, I'm going to step out for a second while Colin makes his pick here at 13:02. He now has a starting quarterback. He now has his starting tight end. We already mentioned 5 running backs, 5 receivers, and he is on the clock here for his 13:02 pick. He was looking at quarterback. Will the quarterback be a position here? We will find out shortly to go with Anthony Richardson. It is going to be receiver. Colin, yeah, there we go. Here we go. Colin, tell us a little bit about DJ Chark.
It's, again, another swing for the fences, kind of like, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. I don't know what's going on in Carolina. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity, and I feel like he might be their number one. Who's to say? Again, we're kind of swinging for the fences out here.
If you were swinging from the fences, why not Jonathan Mingo?
I actually don't know enough about him, to be honest with you.
I mean, if you watch that first preseason game, Carolina got destroyed by that Jets front seven. Offensive line looked suspect. Bryce Young got killed. But I like your pick. I mean, I would have took Mingo. I like Mingo a little bit more, but the Chark pick, I feel like, is safe. I'm not taking Adam Thielen. I mean, you talking about meat and potatoes. He's not even meat and potatoes. He's, steaks from Acme. Like, no, I'm good.
I actually kind of was reaching for Justin Ross kind of around here too, but like since his injury and like who knows what's going to happen on Kansas City. Van Jefferson is a guy I like to go for around here too, but again, who knows what's going to happen. And Thielen, how old is he exactly? I'm not sure.
He's up there. I mean, and he's just not. He's not the sexy pick. I mean, people say he's a good floor. He seems to be having the rapport with Bryce Young early. I don't see it. I didn't see it last year. I don't see him being a guy I could ever draft in these. I mean, you're trying to win $1 million. I don't think Adam Thielen is going to be the guy to get you there. I don't see him having many good spike weeks, and to click that button just seems gross.
I mean, maybe in best ball, but it's just not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not. Maybe best ball because you get a little bit of a safer option, but I like the DJ Chark pick. Obviously, we talked about Mingo slightly. Are you worried at all that at your tight end position? Obviously, you like Musgrave, but it's starting to get a little tricky there.
Oh, it's just tight ends. Either you're winning at all with tight ends, or it's a ginormous dumpster fire. So to me, this is all good luck. It's any one of these guys. Even I like Likely. He's deep. I'll even throw a little Taysom Hill in there once in a while, just because I know that can go nuts.
I like that.
Not on the Dulcich train. And again, I'm kind of a Jets fan, so Conklin, I kind of like drafting him as well. So I just feel like there's it's like a avalanche of garbage that we can choose from here.
That's going to be another team name for me this year. Avalanche of garbage. I love that one. Colin, what about
these team names?
I know it's fantastic. Colin, for anybody who is drafting a Fantasy Pros Championship team for the first time in their lives, they're like, oh, you know what? I can win $1 million. It's only $350 to enter. I'm going to do it. What's the best piece of advice that you can give them? Something that maybe they wouldn't get from a live stream, something that they maybe wouldn't get somebody telling them about this draft. What's the best piece of advice you would give them in order to have your best chance at winning a 7-figure dollar grand prize?
I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but it's like, for me, it's not about winning the big prize. Like, it's about the community, and it's about the camaraderie, and it's about taking a shot. And it's also, I think we're all coming from home leagues. So we all kind of start from that, our 12 buddies or 14 buddies. And so, but I want like more of that. I have my home league, but I want more of it. And and I believe this provides that opportunity, but to specifically answer your question, I would say that you got to have fun with it. Number one, you're spending a large chunk of money to have fun, but to me, average is $200 buy-in for a home league. So you guys are like my home league, but my home away from home league.
I love it.
$1 million.
Yeah, and I might win $1 million, right? Let's go.
Well, so Colin, let me ask you this. So how many years have you been playing with the FFPC? I don't even know, just to ask you off the top of your head.
Like honestly, last year was the first time I actually was like poking around. I always, raise your air horns, everybody. I love JJ, right? Like I'm a big fan of JJ Zacharyson, what he's done over the years. I always listen to his casts, and he would always have the promo codes and be talking about you guys. And, you guys are kind of all playing in the same pool together. And when I saw that this was sort of, to me, it's sort of like a way to have a home league actually in person. To me, that's what drew me, was the in-person drafting aspect of it. So I kind of I poked my head in at Planet Hollywood, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on here?" Because I don't know. It's like the internet. This could be some weird stuff. But it's and it just
definitely
looks like
weird stuff.
But
different definitions of weird stuff. What you might peek in and see, but I mean, it's a long weekend.
Yeah.
But I saw my same draft board, right? Same stickers. Same group of buddies and guys and gals just sitting there like pining over their papers, and I was just like, I love this. And so, I went back to my hotel room and I signed up for an online event. Did that, got crushed. I was all about like Cortland Sutton and Russell Wilson. And,
welcome to the club.
Oh my God, Kyler Murray.
Preaching to the converted here.
All pain.
Preaching to the converted.
All pain.
So I was like, I thought I could play poker at home, and I took my home game to Vegas, and I just got murdered. So.
Well, and Colin, I have to ask you too, because like you've done this before, and you can obviously look back on what you did in your draft last year, but at the same time, I'd like you to kind of compare what it's like drafting in your home league, office league, family league, friends league, whatever, compared to the main event or compared to the Fantasy Pros Championship, which you're doing tonight. Is this a gigantic leap forward to, oh my God, I got to know all this stuff? Or is it more of a smaller step? Like, you know what? These people are all like-minded like me. I'm just competing against my peers here. What are your thoughts on that? And I honestly don't know which way you're going to answer here.
To be honest, again, it comes back to that, I kind of found my people. We just talk about football, and, you know who CJ Spiller is, it's like we can like communicate on a level that is, when you're kind of out in the world, you're like, oh, how's the weather, how's politics, and to me that gets so bland and boring. This is like a craft, this is an art, and it's also has a lot to do with mathematics and predicting the future, and it's like stocks and bonds and like many things in the world, but it's safe and it's fun, and that's what I really love about it. So
We love having you on, having fun on the YouTube stream tonight, Twitter stream, Facebook stream, what have you. Colin Baxter drafting from the second spot tonight. Le'Veon's Balls is the team so far. You made a couple of picks on there. You've been extraordinarily gracious with your time. Thank you so much for hopping aboard tonight, Colin. Don't be a stranger. Are you coming out to Vegas again this year?
I mean, I got my plane ticket. I'm flying in.
Go.
I'm flying in on Thursday morning, so things have to like work out just perfect. But that's how life is. Sometimes
you'll be good. Terp and I will try to find you, and we'll hang out for a little bit.
Say hello.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll talk about why your 4 running back start here in the first 5 rounds was either a massive mistake or the way that you won the $1 million this year. One of those conversations is going to happen at Planet Hollywood. We look forward to having it with you, Colin. Thank you so much for joining the show.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for your time, and thanks everybody, and good luck to all my fellow competitors.
There you go. Colin Baxter, Le'Veon's Balls, drafting from the 102 tonight in the Fantasy Pros Championship draft that we are covering here live on the FFPC YouTube. We are 13 rounds in. Let's get into the 13th round. Let's highlight a couple of picks here. Kendre Miller, or I was watching FFPC. God, I got to stop saying that. NFL preseason, not FFPC preseason.
Same
thing. I guess it kind of is the same thing. I was watching NFL preseason while I was commissioning drafts this past weekend, and I heard the Saints. I think it was the Saints announcers. It's not Kendre Miller. They were calling him Kendra Miller. So now I feel like I gotta adjust how I talk.
That's why I got hurt.
Maybe that's what it is, and that's the question here, Terp. He gets hurt. It doesn't sound like it's not like a significant thing, but it will keep him out for a little bit of time. Kendre Miller, 1303 tonight to Ryan Cleary's team as running back 52. Your thoughts on not only Kendre Miller, but we talked about, you don't have to touch on Kamara, but talk a little bit about Jamal Williams tonight, who ended up going at the 904 to GH Divine. With the Kendra Miller injury, how is this affecting the rest of the Saints running backs for you?
I mean, it's definitely a worry. I mean, it definitely boosts them both up. I mean, Jamal Williams, is more of a guy that I would consider now that I really wasn't considering at all. I mean, I'm still not excited about it, but like he's a guy that can get you through a couple weeks. And, from week 1, week 2, and week 3, where there's no Kamara, it could be the Jamal Williams show. And we always talk about scoring points and pockets in these contests. It's not about just, I have the best scorer every single week. Some of these guys who have won millions of dollars and $500,000 grand prize, they'll tell you about the guys that got them 2 weeks and 3 weeks when they were desperate at position during bye weeks, injuries, whatever. Jamal Williams is definitely a guy that could get that for you. I mean, we look at some of the guys that went late. I mean, Roshan Johnson's, the Chubb Hubbards, the Mosters, Jeff Wilsons, keep going down the list. I mean, these are guys that you don't expect to be starters every week, but if you get them in there and they get you a 15, 20-point week, I mean, they're going to give you such an advantage in the small pockets that they score, and could be the difference between you making the playoffs and a shot $1 million or you missing the playoffs and going home with 0.
Turp, I feel like I've asked you this like 3 times, and I probably shouldn't be asking you about it again, but I'm going to anyway. Have we talked about Zamir White?
We have. We're going to talk about him again, though.
I guess we'll talk. Go ahead. Josh Jacobs. Hold on. Let me set you up. Running back 12, Josh Jacobs, 311. Zamir White, running back 49 at the 1209 over the last 2 days in the Fantasy Pros Championship. Tonight, we have Zamir White going off the board at the 1305, running back 53 to Brent Studebaker. Your thoughts on the Raiders running back situation?
Scored in preseason, looked good. Obviously the team, no expectations this year. I don't expect the Raiders. They're clearly the worst team in that division, in my opinion. So many questions at quarterback. So many questions, outside Devontae Adams. Defensively, they're okay. They're not great. But with Zamir White, I mean, Josh Jacobs still not in camp. And no matter what, I don't see Josh Jacobs getting a contract at this point. So he's either going to have to sign and get in there or risk holding out, but he has no leverage. So Zamir White, very high upside running back right now, 13th round. Give me him as much as I can at that position. Very big fan of him. He's a guy that I was a little off at the beginning, but have been just pounding him in every draft I can lately.
Let's talk about Irv Smith here, because I don't get a chance to on my Friday show with Farrell Elliott because he refuses to talk about Irv Smith, which is fine. I get it. Tight end 20 at the 1305 on average tonight. Irv Smith tonight goes 1308, tight end 20, almost right on brand. He goes to team 8, which is Richard Patika as the backup to Pat Freiermuth. We have a lot to consider with Irv Smith this year. Not only the fact that he's going to be contending with targets from Joe Mixon, Chris Evans, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, but the fact that Burrow is hurt right now. Is this the time to be drafting Irv Smith as your backup, Terp? Do you have a strong opinion on this, or is this guy that you'll get a couple of spots, but you're not targeting him?
He's not a guy I'm targeting a lot. I mean, he's a guy that I love coming out of school, was really high on him a couple of years in Minnesota, and just never did anything to warrant, his draft capital. But he fell in a great spot. So if you believe he could be Hayden Hurst of last year, then you should be on him more. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be more of a 3 receiver down. I think Boyd's going to benefit a little bit more, from the Hurst leaving town. I just don't think Irv Smith's that good. Coming off major injuries, he's always banged up. I'm just not on him. He's not a guy that I'm targeting much. Like you said, he's a guy that I'll get in a spot or 2 here, but not somebody I'm actively targeting. If I have Joe Burrow or a Cincinnati build, he's definitely somebody I would consider. But by himself, it would just have to be like, the right spot or the right fall. It definitely would be taking him at 80 pick.
Ezekiel Elliott is selected tonight, the New England Patriot, 1310, running back 54, not even a half round after where he normally went before he was signed. Terp, how do you draft Ezekiel Elliott? And you can weigh in, and it's been a while. I know we talked about Ramondre Stevenson earlier, but can you talk a little bit about Elliott and how you would be drafting him, and then Ramondre Stevenson, who went off the board as the final pick of the second round tonight?
Now that Elliott has landed, I'm a Zeke hater. We've known that on these streams a bunch of times. I call him Dusty, and I won't ever back off on that statement. But he's going to be annoying to Ramondre. I mean, they brought him in. He got paid more money than he should have been. I could see him being the goal line back. I could see him being the short yardage back. I could see him getting 7 to 10 carries every game, and that is going to be very, very annoying for Stevenson. Do I think he's going to play on pass downs? He better not. But is there a world where Bill O'Brien falls in love with him and it's more of like a 60-40 when it should be an 80-20 split? Yeah, but as a backup, as a guy that he's a handcuff right now. So you can't really hate on handcuffs because you're banking on him the guy above him to get hurt. So in the 14th, 15th round, where did he get drafted here?
Tonight he got drafted 13-10 tonight for
13.
Elliott.
I'm fine with him there. I probably won't be clicking that button, but I don't mind the pick where it is.
Well, is there something to be said that he is he's not only an injury away type guy, Terp, but he's done it before. So you're not drafting a guy who was like a 4th round rookie, right? You're drafting a guy who was a former 1st round pick in the FFPC before, and he's still playing. And it's not like he's just clinging to scraps at this point. It seems like he still has something left. The fact that he's done it before, does that do anything with you? Or would you be more comfortable drafting a younger guy who hasn't done it before? Think about the other guys that went in the 13th round. Kendra Miller, Zamir White, Chuba Hubbard even. And then you look to the 14th round, Ty Chandler, Chase Brown, Jerome Ford. How does Ezekiel Elliott fall in when you're trying to weigh the injury away type guys that just need the opportunity?
I mean, I like the Hubbard and Zamir White over Elliott. I just think that offense is going to be bad. I mean, I don't see where the speed dimension. I know they're hyping up this rookie, but I don't see where the Patriots can compete with these teams, especially in their division. So that's where my worry is. I would take the younger guys that are a little unknown over him. I'm not saying I won't take him in some spots. I'll add him now that he has a set spot, but he's not somebody I'm going to pounding the draft.
Mm-hmm. What about let's not talk about that. Let's get through the 14th round here, because I want to bring up Lee Snyder's post in the YouTube chat as far as Colin Baxter's team goes. We just talked to Colin just a few minutes ago. He ends up backing up Anthony Richardson with Daniel Jones, and he said, look, Anthony Richardson may have been named the starter today by Indy. Doesn't mean he's going to be my starter week 1 in the Fantasy Pros Championship. He could be looking at a start with Daniel Jones here. Lee Snyder saying that they got a great number 2 quarterback in round 14. Well done. That is what Lee Snyder had to say about Colin Baxter's squad here as far as the signal caller room goes. What do you make of Daniel Jones here tonight, Terp, at the 14-11 for a team that already had Richardson as his only quarterback?
Everything he said was spot on. I mean, Daniel Jones is probably going to be his guy from the beginning. I think he has top 5 to 7 upside this year. Do I think he's going to get there? No, but in the range of possibilities, it's definitely there. The offense has improved. Darren Waller in town. If a receiver or 2 emerge, in a group of unknowns right now, obviously you have Barkley there. The offensive line will be better. Another year, Brian Dable. So I like that spot for him. Daniel Jones is the perfect quarterback to have with Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson is going to take some time. I don't think you're ever clicking the button to start Anthony Richardson in a managed, league like the Fantasy Pros Championship week 1. If you are, you could be setting yourself up for a disaster.
Yeah.
Because he's going to have his lumps. I'd rather have Anthony Richardson on my team chasing $1 million at the end than at the beginning, where he could put me in a big hole where I won't be able to get out of it.
Terp, let's look at – I just looked at the board as a whole here, and I know our viewers can't see the whole board, but they're going to see the important parts of it here tonight. I am looking at 3 teams tonight. No, 4 teams, beg your pardon. 4 teams with at least 3 tight ends on their roster. We have halfway through the 15th round, 25 tight ends off the board. Let's talk about Donnie Andrews, the former $500,000 winner in the Football Guys Players Championship. He ends up getting 3 tight ends here: Dalton Kincaid, Hayden Hurst, and Hunter Henry as his top 3 tight ends. Can you let us in on what you think of his strategy? Again, waiting until the 9th round in the tight end premium format to draft his first tight end in Kincaid, but still grabbing a couple of tight ends that have done it before, Hurst and Henry, in the 14th and 15th rounds.
I love what he did. I mean, if you're waiting on tight end, it's the perfect way to do it. I mean, you look at all the guys he drafted. There's a world where Kincaid is second in target on that team behind Diggs. You could easily see that. He's getting a lot of positive press in camp. They're going to play a lot of 2 tight end sets with him and Knox. He's going to catch a lot of passes. Hayden Hurst. You keep hearing about the report, Bryce Young. Obviously, that first preseason game was a little ugly, and they got beat up pretty bad on the offensive line, but they played the Jets. That's one of the best defenses in football. And then Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, dislocated shoulder, might not be ready for the season. He's a guy that was free in drafts mostly. It's just starting to rise up. So if you're waiting on tight end, which a lot of people are doing this year, I have no issues whatsoever with the Henry. He's a guy that we talk about pockets. He's a guy that can get you a couple pockets early in the season, get you 6 for 72, maybe find a way in the end zone. And that's a big, big advantage to have from a 14, 15, 16 round pick.
What about I'm sorry, I'm distracted. My son is playing in his fall ball league right now, and I'm getting updates on my phone.
How's he doing? That's most important over there.
Yeah, I know he's been a wizard in the field so far. He pitched a little bit. They're up 9-0 right now, so we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Yeah, it is. It's very good. Let's get into the tight ends. We talked a little bit about Richard Patika's squad from the 8th round tonight. Freiermuth at the 8:05, Irv Smith at the 13:08, Dawson Knox at the 15:08. Turp, this isn't necessarily a question about how he's built his tight ends, but I want to get your thoughts on getting Dawson Knox this year as your 3rd tight end when you consider everybody and their mother drafting higher on Dalton Kincaid, the other Bills tight end, at the 9:06 tonight. His ADP, by the way, according to the Mojo right now, as far as where Dalton Kincaid's going, not as high as I thought he was going to go as far as this point of the year. Tight end 11 at the 9:05, so he's basically on brand tonight. But your thoughts on Dawson Knox, the forgotten guy in Buffalo?
He's definitely a forgotten guy. I mean, where he's going in drafts, he should. I mean, he's going at a great spot. I mean, that offense is still going to feature him. He's not going away. I know people talk about Kincaid, like myself, love him, love his talent, but he's still a rookie tight end. He's going to have his lumps. So a guy like Dawson Knox, especially in best ball, but even redraft, as your backup tight end, if you're starting with a stud like Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson type of situation, don't mind Knox at all. Would have no issues drafting him. Team 9 tonight with their tight ends. That's Rich Bilyeu, Evan Engram at the 8:04, Tyler Higbee 11:09, Juwan Johnson at the 12:04. I can get on board with Engram. I can definitely get on board with Higbee. Your thoughts on Juwan Johnson at the 12:04 with the addition of the corpse of Jimmy Graham joining the Saints this year? Not worried about the corpse of Jimmy Graham. I love Juwan Johnson this year. You saw him in the preseason.
He looked great.
Start. He looked great. I mean, he looks quick. He looks like he's meshing with Derek Carr. They seem to be on the right page. And what can you say negative about that? That's just great news. I mean, he's a guy that if you're waiting on tight ends, he's a guy you should be looking at. So I have nothing negative to say about Juwan Johnson. He's definitely up there in the top 5 of my tight end ownership. So all wheels up with him.
We don't often see a team who invests a draft capital, a pick in getting the 6th tight end off the board in George Kittle tonight that still drafts 3 tight ends after that. But this is a managed league. He can drop these tight ends if he so chooses. It is our longtime friend, Frank Gambornoni, from the 11th spot tonight. George Kittle at the 6:02. Double down with Gerald Everett at the 11:11, Jake Ferguson at the 13:11, and then Greg Dulcich at the 14:02. Terp, normally if I'm drafting Kittle, I'm kind of not paying attention to the tight end position, except for maybe a sleeper later on in the draft. We don't normally see this approach from Fantasy Pros owners, but we have seen Frank Gambornoni drafting this to pretty successful results over the course of the years, at least the last half decade. Your thoughts on Kittle, Everett, Ferguson, and Dulcich? Can you make a case for why this is a strong play at tight end here, even with the presence of Kittle, to go for 3 other guys at the same position later on?
I mean, in the FFPC format, you really can't go wrong when it comes to drafting tight ends. I mean, people say you don't want to draft too many. They get a little, pricey at times, but I don't agree with that. I like what he did after Kittle. I mean, he pretty much set it up perfectly to where he has upside. He has guys that, could, work out for him. And I'm with what he did. I like it.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like not a lot of, you're drafting for $1 million, right, in this contest. How many people are going to draft George Kittle at the 602 as the sixth tight end off the board, and then still pound tight ends late? You know, you don't necessarily have to hit on every pick late, but man, if he hits on a guy like Everett or Ferguson, who is going to be the starter in Dallas, Dulcich, who reports out of Denver have been mixed, but certainly a lot of people are reporting he's doing very good. I think there is a possibility for this team to really blow up when you consider he's got the stable at receiver with Lamb and Brown and Ridley. And then if one or two of these running backs hit, Jacobs, who was the NFL rushing leader last year, Kamara, who has been downgraded in drafts because of his impending suspension, James Conner, who has been downgraded in drafts because of the perceived horrible offense in Arizona. And then you have Devon Achane, who's a rookie. You have A.J. Dillon, who is a proven player coming off a bad year. Like, there is a lot to like about the way that Imbornoni has assembled this team at the 11. And again, I'm just pointing out, I'm accentuating the positives right here. But I think there is a lot to like about this squad from the 11th round. Let's move on and tell you what happened in the 15th round tonight. Singletary, Conklin, Gallup, Thielen all going off the board, followed by Deontay Foreman, the third straight running back drafted by Studebaker. We already talked about Hunter Henry going to Donnie Andrews. Kareem Hunt goes to Brady David. Dawson Knox, Derek Carr, Tank Dell, Justin Tucker, and John Mechie. Let's talk about a few Texans receivers in this draft here. Tank Dell at the 15-10 terp tonight. How much did what you saw in the Texans' first preseason game with Tank Dell going, again, I can't remember, it's like 5 for 60 plus and a touchdown. How much did that change what you thought about Tank Dell for redraft leagues this year?
I was always on the Tank Dell bandwagon. He's not a guy that I'm backing off of. Somebody's got to catch the ball there. There's three, obviously people were high on Nico Collins, Mechie, Dalton Schultz tight end. But Tank Dell, I mean, he looks explosive. When he catches the ball, you get that many targets in a preseason game, from the starting quarterback, I'm watching you. And it's definitely something that, where he's getting drafted, he's a perfect upside type of play. If he emerges quickly, I mean, you're looking at a late round draft pick that could be a starter for you by week 2, 3, maybe 4. So I'm on the Tank Dell bandwagon. Yeah, I know he's a rookie. I know he's a little bit smaller, but I like his explosive ability. He's definitely a guy that I feel like could gel with Stroud and definitely be a late round steal.
What do you make of the fact that Mechie and Tank Dell went so close together? You look at their ADP, they're very close. Wide receiver 72, wide receiver 73 at the 1604 and the 1606 on average. Are you still team Tank Dell over John Mechie?
I like Mechie. I like them both. I can't say if you had the gun to my head, I'd probably lean Mechie a little bit. I just like his profile a little bit more. But I like both players. I like, if I had all three of them in a nutshell, I would take the Dell and the Mechie discounts over Nico Collins. I like Nico Collins. Don't have drafted him a ton, but the discounts you're getting on those two players, I feel like, are perfect. Wide receiver 6s, wide receiver 7s on teams that have upside to where they could be starting for you down the stretch.
So the 16th round underway here, and of the 4 big free agent running backs, 2 of them have now signed in Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. Kareem Hunt still out there. Leonard Fournette still out there at the 1601. Team 12, which is David Johansen's squad, drafted 1 running back in the first 8 rounds. That was Tony Pollard, but he has been pounding the green after that. In fact, in the last 8 rounds, he has drafted 7 running backs. Brian Robinson, Bigsby, Jeff Wilson, Spears, Hubbard, Edwards-Helaire, and now Leonard Fournette at the 1601. Does that seem like the right spot for Fournette, given that we kind of think he's going to sign with somebody? We just don't know who, Terp, and we don't know what the role is going to be.
I hope the role is Cincinnati. I've said it 100 times. I still think Cincinnati is the nut spot out there. There's obviously some other good spots out there that make sense. I think that's the best spot. That's the spot I hope he lands in. He can pretty much, he knows, what's out there now. He's going to pick a spot that's going to be best for him. I don't see him just, Leonard Fournette's not the type of guy I think is going to sign. So it's definitely something to watch, but I very, very, very much enjoy Fournette landing in Cincinnati if that's possible.
Did I ever tell you, Terp? And I know I've shared it on the channel before. I don't know if I've ever shared it on this show. My Leonard Fournette local Baton Rouge restaurant story. Have I ever shared that with you?
Never heard it. Would love to hear it, though.
You're going to hear it now. I have a friend of mine that I still keep in touch with. I went to high school with her. She moved down to Louisiana several years after high school, and she worked at. Have you ever heard of the restaurant franchise called Walk-Ons?
Yes, I have.
Okay, Walk-Ons it's bigger in the South, obviously, than it is in the Midwest for me. But it's like a Hooters, a Buffalo Wild Wings, if you will, that type of place. Well, she GM'd one in Baton Rouge. This was back when Fournette was a student athlete at LSU, running for the Bayou Bengals. And she said not only was he not personable, not only was he not a good tipper, he would usually come in to the Baton Rouge Walk-Ons and get the spinach artichoke dip, right? And the spinach, we've all been to restaurants that serve the spinach artichoke dip, and they usually come with tortilla chips. You dip the tortilla chips in and you eat it, whatever. That's not how Fournette ate it. He would leave the chips alone. He wouldn't touch the chips. He would grab a spoon and he would spoon up, Ezekiel Elliott style, the spinach artichoke dip into his mouth with the spoon, never dipping the chips into it. He just ate the dip with the spoon. And if I would have known that back when I was drafting him in rookie leagues, I probably would have shied away from him more.
Interesting.
But he's made a career, I guess. Like what
he's made a great career. I mean,
Lombardi Lenny, Lambo, Lombardi Lenny,
Tom Brady brought him back from the dead.
He got him on a TB12 diet where he wasn't eating.
He did. He got him in shape. Him and Antonio Brown. Neither has been the same since.
It's true. It's very true. That's my Leonard Fournette story. It's like the third time I've told it. I'm going to retire it at this point, but it's still in my mind that she said, yeah, Fournette would come in all the time. He'd eat the spin dip with a spoon. Never saw that happen ever before anywhere. And I've been to plenty of places that have the spinach artichoke dip as an appetizer. God bless Fournette. You got to get those calories in somehow. Moving on to the 17th round, 17-11, Mike Gesicki tonight from Frank Imbornoni. Terp, be honest with you, full disclosure, I have not seen the latest. I know he left practice. I think it was a concussion, right? That he left practice with today.
What player was it?
Mike Gesicki, tight end.
It was a dislocated shoulder.
Dislocated shoulder. Okay, so do we have a time frame on when he'll be back on the field yet?
He wants to be ready by week 1, but I don't know.
It's dicey. It's dicey. Okay, so does that make him more of a buy at the late 17th, early 18th, when you consider that every single year of Gesicki's career has been successful, except for the 1 year he played under Mike McDaniel's system?
I agree. I mean, he's a guy that I wish landed in a better spot. I wasn't crazy when he landed in New England. Mm-hmm. But, I like Hunter Henry better right now. I think he's just a better, he's an actual tight end. I mean, Gesicki is more of like a goal line type of situation, a guy that should be used more around the 10-yard line and in. I just don't see that offense being very good to utilize Gesicki's strength. So is he a good value where he's getting drafted now? Yes. But he's not a guy that I'll be targeting a ton as the summer goes on.
Let's talk about a pair of Cardinals that went in the 17th round here, and I'll lead things off to Michael Wilson at the 1703. Terp, this is a guy that I've seen a lot of high-stakes players be talking up lately. Is there hype around Michael Wilson when you consider that, we could have Clayton Tune starting games, maybe the first game of the season for Arizona? We don't know if there's an end in the sports bra wearing Kyler Murray's recovery in sight. I don't know if he's going to be playing this season or not. Marquise Brown's there. I know there's a lot of people on Rondale Moore. Is there something to be said for Michael Wilson at the 1703 tonight, which is where Ryan Cleary drafted him?
He's a guy that's been getting so much positivity in preseason, just dominating in practice, but it's practice. So we've seen it before with the Terrace Marshalls of the world. Preseason guy gets steamed. He will never get that high steam, but it's a bad team. And if you're looking for, a guy to take a shot on late, he's a perfect profile. I mean, Marquise Brown, will he care when they're 1-15? Probably not. Rondale Moore, he's hurt every year. I mean, the tight ends, Zach Ertz has been cleared, but with Trey McBride, you have a lot of unknown in that backfield. So it's definitely a worry. It's definitely something that is a little scary for me. Don't know where the draft board went or Balky went, but we'll try to figure it out. We're doing this a little blind. But the question is, with Michael Wilson is when the pads go on and everything is the lights are the biggest. Will he perform and get the job done? So it's definitely worth the risk, and it's definitely worth the pick. But is the upside there? Of course. Is it something that you got to worry about a little bit? Yes, but in the 17th, 18th round, absolutely no worries whatsoever with that pick.
Turp, what about his real life teammate in Keontae Ingram? I know there's a lot of people that don't like James Conner this year. Shouldn't Ingram be going higher than the 17th round if that's the case?
I think he should be. I mean, he's definitely a guy that they brought in Marlon Mack towards ACL. He's out for the year, so it's pretty much the Ingram show as the backup. And James Conner he's not in the perfect health. He's getting up there in age, and I could easily see James Conner being moved at the deadline, to a team, sort of like a Jay Ajayi a couple of years ago to the Eagles when they went on the Super Bowl run. A team that might have lost a running back during the season that needs a veteran guy. He's a perfect fit. And to set up, Ingram, who's a young guy who they got to see what they got in these guys. This is going to be a bad football team this year. So that's your fear when you're talking about James Conner's fear early. Your fear is a bad team, and a bad team makes James Conner. I don't think why would a coach run him into the ground? I could easily see him getting moved somewhere else, and Ingram being the guy at the end of the season that you're starting in your Fantasy Pros lineup.
Terp, question from the YouTube chat right now. Lee Snyder, our good buddy, said, wow, Russ Wilson's stock has sure fallen since that preseason game. He goes off the board tonight at the 18-11, not as the second quarterback, but the third quarterback to Colin Baxter tonight. Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson backing up Anthony Richardson. You're going to be drafting in Las Vegas and coming up very, very soon in a lot of high dollar leagues. Can you tell us a little bit about where you think Wilson is going to go then, and a little bit about how you should be treating him in drafts right now, given how low he's going?
His stock is really low. I mean, after last year, it's hard to actually close your eyes and see what the disaster of last year was with that offense. I mean, they were bad, but you gotta. What I like to do is I try to separate every year. I try to black out what happened the year before. Obviously, some things you're just not going to get out of your brain. That's really hard not to, because I watched a ton of Denver games, being heavily exposed to that offense, especially Courtland Sutton, and it was ugly. It wasn't pretty. It was very, very tough to watch. But you got to try to separate. New coaching staff. Sean Payton is not an idiot. He does very well with the offense. He does very well with the quarterback position, the running back position. That offense will be a lot better. They'll be in a lot of shootouts, you would think. So you saw at the end of the season, Russ start figuring things out the last couple of weeks. I mean, he was a guy that if he was on your fantasy team, definitely, got the job done. He probably wasn't on many because he was so bad early, but I like Russ this year. If you're dire on quarterback, I mean, he's a backup quarterback right now, but I think he has a range of outcomes to get to a low-range QB1. And definitely a guy that if I'm targeting a backup, he's in my top three.
Terp, we have not talked Kansas City receivers at all tonight, and I think that's important to bring up. Justin Ross went off the board tonight to Derek Torres at the 16:03. Richie James goes off the board tonight at the 18:01 to David Johansen's team. I got to ask you here, we talked Kadarius Toney, we talked even Marquez Valdes-Scantling to a certain point, and obviously Sky Moore has been picking up as we have gotten deeper into the preseason here. Sky Moore goes off the board tonight at I'm missing him here, 8:01 tonight to David Johansen's team. So he has Sky Moore and Richie James. How do you treat the Chiefs in drafts when you're drafting to beat thousands of other teams for a $1 million grand prize?
It's Sky Moore right now, and we talked about Kadarius Toney before. If he beats me, he beats me. I mean, I know a lot of guys are still buying the dip, and they think he's going to be back, and it's a possibility, but the guy can't stay healthy, so I'm out on him. MVS is not a guy that I'll ever draft. Maybe a best ball type of situation, but not to manage. So I'll take my shots with these guys late. Richie James. I saw Justin Ross got hurt today. Cart was out. I don't think it's anything serious, but still, he should be out a little time. That might cost him a job. He might get cut. So Richie James is definitely the guy to watch. Buy as many pieces as you can in this offense. If you get a shot like a Richie James, is he going to be a league winner? No, but we talk about pockets. I've said it 100 times on this show. Richie James is a guy that, you're getting a free look early in the season with Richie James. You're taking him this late, he's a guy that could be in your lineup week 1 and get you 20 points. Where some of these guys just have so many questions that you're just kind of not even looking at.
I think the other thing that I want to bring up here tonight as we enter the final round of the draft coverage tonight, I cannot remember a time when 3 Washington Commanders receivers are being drafted, but that's what we're seeing tonight. McLaurin at the 503 to Ryan Cleary tonight. Jahan Dotson, 706 to Donnie Andrews tonight. And then Curtis Samuel, 1805 as wide receiver, 83 to Richard Patika's squad tonight. Is there still value in drafting Curtis Samuel late when so many people are on Dotson and McLaurin, Terp?
There definitely is. I mean, you saw some, spike weeks early in the season from him that got a lot of owners who drafted him late, in these, Fantasy Pros Championships, main events, and obviously the best ball thing. Got him some points early. Is it something that was expandable? No, I think it's going to be the Dotson and Scary Terry show. He's not a guy that I'm targeting a ton, but this late in the draft and injury away, I mean, we always talk about handcuffs at running back, but handcuffs at receiver with some of these guys who are proven make a lot of sense too.
We have a late stack alert, which, should be alerting JD, John Daniel from the GOAT District, which, by the way, his cohort, Dan Williamson, going to be co-hosting live Superflex Best Ball Tournament draft coverage here in about 64 minutes, along with Dave Tripoli and Aiden LaCorey here on the FFPC YouTube channel as they bring you 12 drafters drafting for a $50,000 grand prize. The late stack alert is, of course, Frank Imbornoni here, Terp. Brock Purdy at the 2002 to the team that already had George Kittle at the 602 and already had, what was the other one I saw here that that was it. Lee Snyder pointing out that it was Kittle in the 6th, Purdy in the 20th round. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would handle, whether it be Fantasy Pros, Best Ball Tournament, whatever it is? Can you tell us a little bit of when you draft a tight end, or wide receiver in the early to mid rounds when his quarterback is going super late? Does it just make sense to go out of your way to draft that extra quarterback there?
Makes a ton of sense. I mean, Purdy's a guaranteed starter. I mean, you saw Kyle Shanahan's quotes today. He's going to be the guy. And what the most high-powered weapons probably in the league, with Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. I mean, you got a ton of weapons. So in the 20th round, you got to take a shot. Why not? It's not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. 20th round is underway here. Jordan Love, we don't need to get into it a whole lot. But Terp, I said this on my local radio show here in Northeast Wisconsin today. I never fancied myself a Jordan Love and a 2023 Packers lover. I just kind of tell it like it is. But I keep seeing national media and FFPC people treating Watson and Dobbs and Jones, especially Jones, even Musgrave to a certain point, which I'm glad to see he's moving up, but especially Love. I'm seeing them treat them with reckless abandon, like this Packers offense is going to be terrible this year. And while they could be right that it could be terrible, my goodness, the risk definitely is not outweighing the reward right now. I think the Packers should be going higher. And I feel, I feel like that's not my fandom talking. I'm surprised to see teams, when you're trying to beat out thousands of teams for a $1 million grand prize, just basically fading the Packers offense in general. I think it's a mistake.
I also agree that it's a mistake. I mean, I like what they did in the first preseason game. People are like, well, Jordan Love didn't do this. He simplified the game plan, get the guy some positivity in his brain set, and mindset, and then he's going to be fine. I mean, he's going to start figuring out these deep bombs to Christian Watson. You see the camp highlights here and there. I've been listening. I actually started following a bunch of beat writers for the Packers because I'm all in on the Packers this year, offensively with Watson and Love and Aaron Jones and Dillon and all those guys. So I like what I see. That offense should be getting drafted higher. I feel like Aaron Jones is kind of ignored in drafts right now. He's a guy that was starting up there, and he's kind of falling a little bit, and I don't really understand why. I mean, he seems like he's going to be the guy this year. A.J. Dillon's still going to be annoying, but I know you're very high on Aaron Jones. But to me, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. Yeah, it's not the sexiest offense in the world, but they got plenty of potential, young potential, and if they figure it out, this could be a very, very surprising offense, and one I'm really, really high on this year.
I think that's my thoughts on it. Like, I'm not saying that these guys need to be going, super high or anything, but when I look at the draft tonight, I don't see Jaden Reed at all. I see Jordan Love in the 19th round. I'm not a big Dillon guy, but certainly this is a player that was going. Where did he go to tonight, Turp, in the draft? He went in the 10th round. 10th round.
10th round, yeah.
10:02. Aaron Jones, I think, is still undervalued at the 409. This is a guy that was coming off career highs in receptions, receiving yards, and rushing yards last year, and he's being drafted as the running back 13. He's not even being drafted as a starting running back. So I think these are the issues I have with it. The Packers are not going to win you this entire competition, but certainly if you draft them just a little bit higher than they are now, I think you're going to be ahead of the curve, and that's where I fall in on it. I could be totally wrong. But, you know, I've seen a lot of stuff over the years, and to me, it's difficult for me to see Jordan Love being the bust that seemingly everybody thinks he's going to be based on his ADP here tonight. And Lee Snyder saying that the Packers appearing to have a fairly easy schedule, too. And I think that's right. You remember, they did not win the division last year, so obviously they're going to be facing an easier schedule.
Let's also not forget, we're not talking about a division that has good defense.
Right.
Bears defense, very average.
The Lions and Vikings are going to be historically bad again.
So if Jordan Love can't figure it out against them offenses, then maybe some of these guys are right. But I believe he will. I mean, I believe Christian Watson's going to get behind that defense a bunch of times, take some slants to the house. That was his big playability. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Musgrave. I think this offense is going to be a lot better than people think, and I think they're going to battle the Lions and the Bears for the division.
Couple of things to keep in mind. Not that I want to turn this into a Packers show, but I will. Number one, Matt LaFleur comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree of coaching, where you don't need an otherworldly quarterback prospect like Johnny Unitas, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, Joe Montana in order to become a very successful offense in the NFL. You can do it without that. Jordan Love, even if he is not going to be a future MVP, he doesn't have to be in this offense. Number two,
said perfectly.
Totally. And then number two, when you look at where these guys are going in drafts, if you miss on the Packers, which I don't want to come out and say like, oh, everybody is wrong, Jordan Love is going to be a stud. He may not be. But if somebody is telling you that Jordan Love is going to stink, he's going to suck, he can't do it, they are lying to you or they are making it up because they have nothing to base that on. Absolutely
zero.
You're looking at like such a tiny, small sample size that we're just all speculating. And that's what I want to say I'm doing tonight. And Terp, I think, is doing the same thing. We're speculating. Terp and I believe that Jordan Love is going to be good, but we have nothing to base that on. We could totally be wrong. And I'll fully admit, mark the tape right now. I will fully admit that if Jordan Love stinks, this is my disclaimer right now. I'm telling you that there is a non-zero chance that it happens and he's a total bust. I don't think it's going to happen, but I remain the possibility of that happening. There's plenty of other national media guys out there and women that will tell you that there is no chance that Jordan Love is successful. He is a game manager. He is going to stink. He can't play football. These are all things that have been said about Jordan Love over the last month based on nothing. So keep that in mind. I always say this. Everybody's got an agenda, right? Consider the agenda before you consider the advice.
Said perfectly.
Agenda. We're just trying to bring you our thoughts.
I'm not a Packers fan. He is.
I know,
I'm on
exactly.
board with what he's saying.
Right. And like I could be like, I hope Jordan Love is going to be good. I don't think he's going to be great. I think he could be a Pro Bowler. I don't think he's going to be an All-Pro ever, which is fine. You don't need to be that. But I think he's going to be all right. And I think it's not cool that he was drafted in the 19th round tonight. Congratulations to Team 10, which is Derek Torres. I think you got a winner there this season as far as the guy who
had a very good draft. He asked us to look at his schedule. I think he's having a little trouble getting on here. But Team 10, if you could scroll up just for 1 second.
Yeah, I'll scroll up here. Just give me a second. I'll scroll up to the top with Team 10, and it is right. How's that look, Terp?
Yeah, perfect. I mean, the double tight end build is something a little off the wall, but something I don't mind. Dallas Goedert is a good value there.
Mm-hmm.
The receiving crew, I mean, you got worries with Devontae Adams and Metcalf, but I don't think it's anything that, it will hurt this team. Bijan Robinson falling to 10, that's a good value. Definitely who I would have selected there if it was me. Antonio Gibson, like him where they got drafted. Eagles defense, 14th round, always going to be on board with that. We talked about Elliott. I don't think Mooney, Zay, and Rondell Moore. You're gonna get one guy out of there. So
yeah, good
draft. No negative things to say about that at all.
It was so much fun covering this with you, Terp. We will be back live for more Fantasy Pros draft coverage a week from today. We are running out. What do we got? Like 2 or 3
We're close, man. We're close.
We're coming up right to it. We're going to bring you as much live draft coverage as we can. To wit, I'm going to bow out, but at the top of the hour, Aiden LaCorey and Dan Williamson from the GOAT District are going to join Terp for live Superflex draft coverage tonight. Remember, the Superflex Best Ball Tournament at the FFPC, just $35 to get into, but you can win $50,000. We're going to cover 12 teams going for that five-figure grand prize coming up at the top of the hour. We will continue to follow you, Terp, on Twitter at Dave Terp. Good luck in all your leagues this year. We will, don't be a stranger. We will be talking again with you shortly, man. Appreciate you hopping aboard and offering your expertise tonight on this draft.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you, Dave Terpoli. Remember, you can join him at the top of the hour here on the FFPC YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels, or X channels, I guess, as it were, coming up when he, Aiden, and Dan Williamson from the GOAT District go live with live Superflex Best Ball coverage. Remember, you are looking at less than 6 hours if you want to get your FFPC main event early draft slot by Thursday. You have less than 6 hours to either pay off your balance if you place a deposit, or register for the FFPC main event, and you can get you'll find out where you're drafting almost a month ahead of time at myffpc.com. Make sure you're registering at myffpc.com/main event to sign up for that. That is what's going on right now. I am going to bid you adieu. I will be commissioning the rest of the night with my best friend Bryce, who is going to be commissioning drafts as well. So make sure you're registering for those Fantasy Pros Championship drafts that we're commissioning the rest of the night. We are coming up on 10 o'clock, so we got probably 4 or 5 draft slots yet to go tonight. Make sure you're registering for that. $350, you can win $1 million grand prize as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll see you in the draft rooms there. And if you are or aren't drafting, quite frankly, it doesn't make a difference, because you can actually watch and listen and see everything that's going on with our live draft coverage coming up later tonight in the FFPC YouTube channel here that you're watching right now, with Aiden LaCorey and Dave Terp and Dan Williamson taking over. Remember to register for the FFPC main event before it's too late as far as your early draft slot goes. And I will talk to you again on Thursday at 10/9 Central with Farrell Elliott on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We welcome in 2022 KFFSC main event overall champion R.A. Marino. That is on Thursday at 10/9 Central. Not Friday, but Thursday at 10/9 Central. I will see you again, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and don't go anywhere, because in about 51 minutes, we are going live again.